All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? It is hour one of Jon and Jim. We're going to be with you for the next 3 hours. A couple of things off the top here. Jim Russell, as Darren was just talking about in the Fusion, obviously Marty's been under the weather. Jim goes to one Aztec basketball game, Brent. He goes to one Aztec basketball game, and all of a sudden he's not here, right? He hadn't been there in over a year, Brent. He goes last night. He's all, for now, he would, to be fair, right, you should have seen him yesterday outside. He had all these like cough drops and he had like cough syrup, and you could hear in his voice he was like a little off, I think, yesterday, but he made it inside Viejas Arena and he did all that social media. And I think to his credit, he was there all night. He texted me, Brent, at the half or right before the half. He's like, "This is all my fault."
I'm surprised that you're still there.
I know, but he knew he couldn't leave in like a 37-35 game. So he texts me again at the half because the joke being like, literally, if Jim returns to Viejas Arena off a national championship game after not seeing the team all year and they lose to Cal State Fullerton, like he's now persona non grata for like ever at San Diego State. Like he would never hear the end of that. And yeah, it got off to a good start. So you're thinking, okay, Jim's not a curse. But it was 37-35 at the half. Now, thankfully, San Diego State ran away with it in the second half. And we can't really blame Jim because San Diego State won the game by 1,000,000 points. But he's not here today. And he's been doing some work behind the scenes, like on our YouTube stream. He's sending out social media for us. He just told me, he's like, "Dude, I'm like throwing up." I'm like, "What are you talking? Throwing up?"
He's at home caressing his replica Final Four ring like he's Gollum.
That's right. Yeah. I didn't even talk to him about that. Jim, I know you're listening to us.
I just saw J-Riffs. I think it was awesome.
J-Riffs got a Final Four ring?
Yeah, he got one of those replica ones.
I didn't pick one up.
Oh, you should have. It's pretty cool. He left it in here if you want.
Did he? Okay, we'll take it.
It's pretty cool.
We'll take it from him. So anyway, so Jim was there overall, and we're going to get into this. We're going to talk to Paul Garrison from the East Village Times coming up at 4:30. We'll talk to Jeff Fletcher, by the way. OC Register covers the Angels about Benji Gill as a managerial candidate, also about Shohei Ohtani's future. So Jeff Fletcher will join us in the 5 o'clock hour. Paul Garrison will join us in the 4 o'clock hour. Last night for San Diego sports fans and for fans of the Aztecs was special. And, you know, we always look at things, and by we, I mean kind of Jon and Jim. Like we always kind of look at things like with that glass half empty way of looking at it, right? That's what you do with sports. Woe is me. Why can't we have nice things? It's San Diego, right? City's cursed when it comes to sports. We never get anything to enjoy. And then, you know, I kind of think about it this morning, and yes, everything isn't perfect. Make no mistake. Padres aren't coming off a great year. Obviously, Aztecs football is not where they want to be at 3-6 overall. But you think about the last year, like last October, that was 12 and a half, 13 months ago. The Padres are playing in a National League Championship Series for the third time in the history of the franchise. And the energy downtown throughout the course of the postseason, whether it was the Dodgers series, which was special. And I know a lot of San Diegans listening to us right now realize that. And I know it wasn't good in 2023. But last year against the Dodgers, even against the Phillies, taking game 2 with Blake Snell on the mound, that afternoon game with the offense coming to life, that was special. That was unique. That was fun. It was a good time to be a sports fan in the city of San Diego. And then you couple that run in 2022 with the NCAA tournament run that San Diego State went on last year in men's basketball. And that was special. Like, you don't get the Padres in the NLCS every year if you're a Padres fan. You don't get the Aztecs in a Final Four every year if you're an Aztecs fan. And, you know, last night was special. And I know it wasn't a Final Four, and it's not Lamont against FAU, and it's, you know, just the opener, and it's a journey, and we'll hear from Brian Dutcher coming up. But to see San Diegans and Aztec supporters celebrate the Aztecs the way they should be celebrated, there's so much pride. And Darren made great points there about, like, your alma mater and about your hometown and about your local school. And not everyone's an Aztec fan. I understand it. Maybe you went to UCLA. Maybe you're from Wisconsin. Maybe you're from Pennsylvania. I mean, it's understandable. But I think there's a lot of people that aren't, you know, from San Diego State, so to speak, aren't alums that now live in San Diego and support San Diego State football and basketball. And I thought just last night, Brent, and of course you were here all day and you were behind the scenes on this. I mean, last night was really special just to celebrate a team and what they meant to San Diego State and the city of San Diego. It was something that I know I'm going to remember for a long time.
Well, it's something that Aztec fans kind of desperately needed, especially, you know, with the rough year it's been for the football team, that it was nice just to go in there and just just reminisce one last time about the Final Four, but then finally, and even a lot of the players are saying it too, they're happy just to kind of get the season started and just, move on and just start the next chapter in Aztec basketball. So I was happy. Yeah, the atmosphere was just crazy for it being, the first game of the year. And, no offense to Cal State Fullerton, it's not like they're playing Gonzaga the first game of the year or Duke or somebody like that for the fans and everyone just to show up like they did, that was big.
Yeah, it was just special, and you didn't even have to be there, and you didn't have to be watching. But if you understand what that run meant, I think, to the city of San Diego and sports fans in San Diego, then you kind of understand what the culmination of that would look like. Like, this is the celebration. What was unique about last night, and what was tricky, and we'll hear from Brian Dutcher and what he told us post game. What's tricky about this is, like, there's no game plan, Brent, for like, hey, 6 months ago we were in a national championship game, and now let's celebrate that with our fans. And oh, by the way, let's go out and play a basketball game and play really well. And for a period of time, they looked great. And then for other periods of time, they only looked okay. And then they got it all together in the second half. But considering everything, because I was very much like, this is a big question mark. What's this team going to look like, considering the pomp and circumstance and everything surrounding it? I thought they did as well as you could ask when you consider the circumstances.
Well, they got it done. They look sloppy at times, but then at times they just look, dominant, like they're just going to run through everybody for the rest of the year. But, it's one of these, you still have to play the game. They could have ended up like Michigan State last night, losing to James Madison.
That's right. That's 100% right.
Just because you might not, like I said, you might not have Duke or Gonzaga on the schedule, you still have to show up, especially in college football. You might, or not basketball, you might be able to get away with it in football, but basketball, they love the mid-majors and the smaller schools, and you can get nipped in the butt by those schools.
No, it's a great point. By the way, as we kind of set up the show here today, we're giving away a pair of tickets to the Rady's Children's Invitational in the 4:00 hour. That's coming up this month at Lion Tree Arena. Really good tournament. We have tickets to Championship Friday. We'll give away those tickets coming up in the 4:00 hour. Elijah Saunders, San Diego State, made the start yesterday with Darian Trammell out. He'll join us tomorrow at 3:30. Had a career-high 9 points yesterday. The rising sophomore for the Aztecs. Looking forward to having him on the show tomorrow at 3:30. What I thought was cool, and sometimes this happens in the city of San Diego. I didn't even intend to necessarily go where I'm going to go, but I'm going to do it anyway. That sometimes you have this like divisiveness across different entities, even within the city, right? You have people that like the Padres but don't like the Aztecs. You have people that like the Aztecs and they don't like soccer. Or you have people that like soccer but they don't like basketball. Whatever it is, you understand what I'm saying. You may have Padres Twitter. You may have Aztecs Twitter. I feel like there's a ton of overlap. Specifically with my years in San Diego, it feels as if there's less and less of the friction and there's more rallying around what's good about the city in this kind of post-Chargers era. But, Brent, every time I go to Viejas, and this has happened, I think, each of the last 3 years, and I see Joe Musgrove there. He was there last night with Tim Hill, and he's just a fan. And he's wearing a ball cap, and he did the I Believe That We Will Win chant with the show last night before the game. And he was a former Aztec commit, and he's a San Diegan. And when I see people rally around what's good about sports in the city, it really is motivational to me. Like, I think it was last October that San Diego State's basketball team, at least a few of them, they were at the Dodger series. Like, Lamont Butler's in the bleachers in right, or out in the seats in right, and Darian Trammell was out there. And I think that's cool to show support for other sports entities. And again, I get it. It's different. Maybe you're a Padres fan and you're not an Aztecs fan, or vice versa. Maybe you love the San Diego Wave and you don't like Major League Soccer. But for me, in a city like San Diego, this isn't New York and it's not Los Angeles, and that's a beautiful thing. And that's with intent and with clarity. Where in New York or LA, you have all these professional teams, and there's some feuding between them because they're in the same league. You might have the Clippers and the Lakers. You may have the Giants and the Jets. So there's some natural feuding that goes on. But like in San Diego, why not rally around what we do have, which is a lot? It's not as much as other cities may have. We have more than some cities as well. And let's celebrate. And we don't always do this. Guilty as charged on Jon Jim. And listen, it was a tough year for the Padres. There's no question about it. It's been a disappointing year for football. Everyone understands that. They're 3-6. But to celebrate San Diego State for all that they did last year on the hardwood, I think is a great thing. To celebrate last year, the postseason run of the Padres, I think is a good thing. What the Wave did this year Major League Soccer coming. Again, we only have so many sports here. I don't think we need to have the divisiveness. Not that I'm feeling it or sensing it, by the way. In the last 24 hours, I just kind of went on a tangent and felt like I should go there. And when I saw last night and all the excitement, Brent, and the Joe Musgroves and the Tim Hills and the support from the city and the community, I don't know, it just makes you feel good.
Well, everyone likes to, talk about the SD sports curse and all that stuff. And it's one of those things where when something good happens, like, when the Padres went to the NLCS, where the city will rally around them just because we've had so many and it doesn't matter, whether it was, Chargers or Padres or, you name it, just had so many years of just disappointment to where when one of them does actually rise up and, is good and competes, that it's easy for the city to rally around them.
Yes.
And I think that's what happened with the Final Four last year. Like I said, that's what happened with the Padres and the NLCS that one year. So it's easy for towns like, it's like whenever Cleveland, like whenever LeBron would get them up there, they've gone so long without winning a championship that whenever they would get up there, they would just get so excited and rally around the Cavs. And
yes.
I think it's the same way out here. It's just where we've gone so long without winning anything to where once a team is in a position to do it, everyone will jump on and support them.
I don't know what it is, Brent. Something about last night. I'm in this weird mood where I'm like, listen, no one could guarantee this. Some of the top moments for me in San Diego have occurred within the last year. It's the Padres in the National League Championship Series. It's the Aztecs in a national championship game. And I'm just optimistic about the future. And I don't even know what that means, right? I think there were a lot of people that were optimistic about the future when it came to conference realignment, and we'll see what the future holds there. And there's no guarantees in sports. I mean, the Padres are spending like they've never spent in the history of the franchise, and it hasn't guaranteed success, as evidenced by 2023. And this Aztec basketball team is not the same team as last year. They could be better. They could be worse. We have no idea. And we'll find out over the course of the non-conference schedule into the conference schedule. But it just feels like, and I'm sure, people have said this for a long, long time, and maybe I'm just kind of still feeling the energy of last night inside Viejas Arena. I just feel as if good things are still coming and good things have happened. Like, it's so easy. It's like in Rounders. Here I am making the movie reference. It's the only reference I ever make, and I've made it before. It's like you don't remember winning big hands, but you remember losing the hand. And you remember, what the flop was, right? When you had a 95% chance of winning the hand, but you didn't end up winning it. It's like, listen, a year ago, the Padres are in the National League Championship Series. 6 months ago, San Diego State was in a national championship game. The future with Major League Soccer, if you're a soccer supporter, I think is bright. What has happened with the success of the Wave, I think is really encouraging. There's other professional sports as well throughout the city of San Diego. The Loyal have had a ton of success over 4 years. So my point is this, that there are no guarantees. None of this is ever easy. Everyone wants a championship at the highest level in the city of San Diego, but it's not like all of it has just been horrific and everything is cursed. And why can't we have nice things? Your mind goes there, but sometimes you kind of want to remind yourself of what it was like when Lamont Butler hit the shot, what it was like when Jay Cronenworth had the bounding ball up the middle against the Dodgers. Josh Hader closed out game 4. Padres won game 2 against the Phillies. We're going to get back to more of those moments, is my point. I think those are coming in the future, not just in the past as well. Do we want to hear from from Brian Dutcher? This was Dutch post-game on the Aztec wrap-up show. He joins us after every single men's basketball game. Dutch has done such a good job with these over the 7 years where I feel like every single time I talk to him, and to be honest, Brady's been like this with me in my interactions with him over the year. Whether they win or lose, they're the same person. They don't treat it differently. They understand it's kind of a responsibility of the position. You speak with the media because you're talking to the fan base. And this is Brian Dutcher last night off a win over Cal State Fullerton. And what's ahead?
I mean, we got off to a dynamic start, and then they caught us at halftime. We knew what it was. They did a better job rebounding than we thought they would, and they were up 10, 12 rebounds at halftime, and then we ended up tying them, which is not what we wanted to do. But when you're down that many at halftime, to come back and tie the rebounding batter was a difference. And, it's what I thought it would be. The veterans played rock solid. The new guys are trying to find their way along, and it's just the start of a journey. This is going to be a journey as we figure out who can do what. They get game minutes, if I had Darion, I'd be feeling a lot better because then I'd have 4 guys that have played in tremendously meaningful games. Boney had 3.
Yep.
And even though we had guys in the program, they haven't played critical, smart minutes. And so they had their opportunity today. And that's what I wanted to see, and see who responds and who gets better as the season goes on. And they're all good players, but it's a whole nother dynamic when I'm integrating 8 or 9 new guys with 3 returners.
I remember vividly after the opener last year against the exact same team with an identical result. They won by 23 last year against Fullerton. They won by 26 this year. Same thing, similar game. That Brian Dutcher said something very similar, which was it's the beginning of a journey. And we don't necessarily know where it's going to take us, but we feel good about it. That me paraphrasing. And of course, nobody could have predicted what happened. Nobody could have predicted it, right? San Diego State was looking to win an NCAA tournament game in 2023 off the disappointment of losing to Creighton in the first round in 2022. And not only did they do that, they won 5 NCAA tournament games. They went all the way to a national championship game. So we don't know how this ends. It's the beauty of sports. You could be Kentucky or Kansas. You could go 15 years without appearing in a Final Four, or you could be Butler. And you could be in a national championship game remarkably in back-to-back years. So it's the beginning of a journey, and we'll see how it ends up over the next 4 or 5 months. Now, San Diego State's going to be in Provo, Utah on Friday. This is a place where the Aztecs all-time are 4-30. You heard me right. They are 4-30 all-time. This includes some of the best teams in the history of San Diego State under Steve Fisher and Brian Dutcher. Kawhi Leonard's played there, the DJ Gays of the world, the Malachi Flynn's, right? Some of the great players, the Matt Mitchells, the Jordan Shackles. I mean, some really great players. I'm missing a zillion, obviously. They used to be in the same league. They're no longer, but this will be the 6th consecutive year that they've played. So BYU last night beats Houston Baptist in their opener. They're getting the Aztecs Friday night in Provo. This is the head coach of BYU talking about what it means to play San Diego State.
I love the game so much. It is, which is weird for me to say. We're 2-2, right? But I love that game so much because Dutch is one of my favorite guys in the world. Both of us were sitting in a space where we're just desperately trying to get good games for the last 4 years, and we would go to everybody and ask everybody, and we were the only 2 people that would be like, yeah, let's do this. And what he's done in San Diego State is incredible. And he's got a top 20 team again this year. And every year this turns into an epic battle. It is really turns into a test of your manhood. And I love it. I love it. Our guys love it. We know that we'll face the most physical, it's a street fight from the tip, and it turns into great basketball, and it's been a fun series, and I can't wait to get to it. I do. I love it for our guys and for me.
All right, so that's Mark Pope. You talk about identities, cultures. We've done this a lot, and it's not to pile on. It's really not. It doesn't have to do with whatever, whether it's the Padres or whatever your team is. When you can say something like that about an opponent, and you can establish their culture and their identity in 1 minute or less, that's how you know that you're doing things the right way. Mark Pope talking about the physicality and just everything that is right about San Diego State basketball, how much of a challenge it is to face San Diego State's vaunted defense over the years. So it's San Diego State, and it's BYU, and it's Friday night, and it's Provo, and it's early in the year, and we'll have it for you right here on San Diego Sports 760, Friday night, 6 p.m. Pre-game coverage will begin at 5:30. All right, we're just getting started. Jim is sick. Does that mean, is he going to return? I don't know what the deal is with Jim. Like, when Jim's sick, is he sick for a day? Is he sick for a month? I feel like he's sick every day.
I feel like this is a rhetorical question, but do you think Jim's a big baby when he's sick?
Yes, 1,000%.
You make me some soup.
See, Kristen won't allow me to do that. Like, Kristen will, like, if I'm legitimately sick, I was like, yo, I think I'm having a heart attack. She's like, you're fine. So, but I feel like Aaron probably plays into it because they're not married yet. You know?
I don't know. She did pretty much try to trick him into drinking Benadryl that one day because the sneezing was driving her nuts.
True. Good point. She probably can't deal with it.
She probably just like, oh, okay, have fun with that. I'm going to work.
Dude, if we can't deal with Jim healthy, I doubt Aaron can deal with Jim when he's sick. Okay, on the other side, let's get into this Padres managerial search. Is there a mystery candidate? I can tell you this is not Brian Dutcher. who's coaching San Diego State men's basketball. Also, Paul Garrison, East Village Times, on what happened last night for the Aztecs basketball team, what's ahead for football and basketball. Plus, Jeff Fletcher covers the Angels. What does he make of Benji Gill as a managerial candidate? Also, Shohei Ohtani as a free agent right now. Also, we've got those tickets to give away to the Rady Children's Invitational. It's Tuesday afternoon on Jon and Jim. We're just getting started. Stay with us.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart
So
Sports
I was just
Network,
over at
presented by
Windmill Farms. I was at San
DraftKings.
Diego State this afternoon, and I was over at Windmill Farms for lunch. And we've been telling you about Windmill Farms, obviously, for weeks and weeks and weeks. It's an amazing spot. In fact, I saw the owner, Trevor, last night at the Aztecs basketball game with his family. They're locally owned, and they're right here serving the San Diego community. They've been doing it for 20 plus years. I just picked up lunch. I've always been picking up their sandwiches. Today I picked up a salad. Picked up a salmon salad, affordable, great ingredients, healthy. Picked up some chips, kombucha. You know me. It's the spot for lunch. It really is. You grab a sandwich card, you'll get your 8th sandwich for free over at Windmill Farms. And they're using fresh, high-quality ingredients, and your 8th sandwich is free with a sandwich card. So they're the college area's natural grocer. They've got you covered during your work week for lunch, your weekends for all those game day needs. Whatever it is, they have it for you. The farm fresh produce and meats, the craft beer selection, the kombucha, the deli with the award-winning sandwiches, centrally located off Del Cerro Boulevard, right across the freeway from the Mesa. They've been family-owned and serving San Diego for over 20 years. If you don't live or work near Del Cerro, we've been telling you, no problem. You can find Windmill Farms on Instacart, have your groceries delivered directly to your doorstep. They support local businesses right here in San Diego. You can find the weekly specials, by the way, right down this website, windmillfarmsmarket.com. That's where you're going to see their weekly specials. Again, windmillfarmsmarket.com. But again, whatever you need, whether it's your work week for lunch, your weekends for your tailgating needs, your game day needs, whatever it is, make sure to shop local and shop at Windmill Farms.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday at BYU. Pregame with John starts at 5:30, and the tip will be after 6. In other college basketball news, Kansas's Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. Self has signed an amended 5-year contract in which he will make $53 million over the next 5 years. The Lakers are on the road tonight to take on the Rockets. The tip is at 5. And in NFL news, the Rams signed Carson Wentz today to take over for the injured Matthew Stafford. Stafford's previous backup, Brett Rippon, was waived. And don't forget, San Diego State football is also on the road this weekend as they take on Colorado State. Saturday pregame starts at 2 p.m. with the kick at 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. What? Oh.
JD Gacho, man, thank you so much for the super chat, guys. If you're here, please subscribe. If you want to support the channel, you can click the $ below the chat box, like our buddy JD Gacho. We'll get to your super chats at our breaks. He says UCSD hosting the Rady Children's Invitational at Lion Tree is impressive, even if they don't play the participants. Why doesn't San Diego State hold a tournament at Viejas? I'm not fully certain on that. I think about some of the premier programs in the country, and they're not typically hosting non-conference tournaments. They're usually obviously traveling for them. San Diego State's in a really good rotation of non-conference MTEs, multiple team events, right? They've been in the Maui Invitational every 4 years for the last decade plus. They played at the Diamond Head Classic in Hawaii. They play in Vegas at the Vegas Invitational. They're in the main event this year. They played in the Wooden Legacy. So they've got a good little rotation going where they're getting the opponents that they need to put themselves in a position where they can build a resume. But it's a good question. And yeah, the event coming up at UCSD with SC and Seton Hall, Iowa, Oklahoma is going to be a really good event. It's going to be a really good event. Appreciate your support of the channel, man. We'll be back in a moment. Thank you guys for the super chats and thanks for hanging out. We'll be back.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday at BYU. Pregame with Jon starts at 5:30, and the tip will be after 6. In other college basketball news, Kansas's Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. Self has signed an amended 5-year contract in which he will make $53 million over the next 5 years. The Lakers are on the road tonight to take on the Rockets. The tip is at 5. And in NFL news, the Rams signed Carson Wentz today to take over for the injured Matthew Stafford. Stafford's previous backup, Brett Rippon, was waived. And don't forget, San Diego State football is also on the road this weekend as they take on Colorado State. Saturday pregame starts at 2 p.m. with the kick at 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details. Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday at BYU. Pregame with Jon starts at 5:30, and the tip will be after 6. In other college basketball news, Kansas's Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. Self has signed an amended 5-year contract in which he will make $53 million over the next 5 years. The Lakers are on the road tonight to take on the Rockets. The tip is at 5. And in NFL news, the Rams signed Carson Wentz today to take over for the injured Matthew Stafford. Stafford's previous backup, Brett Rippon, was waived. And don't forget, San Diego State football is also on the road this weekend as they take on Colorado State. Saturday pregame starts at 2 p.m. with the kick at 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
All right. Jon and Jim back with you. We do not have Jim today. Brian Wilson is in studio, by the way. Sales manager extraordinaire. He's been in programming here at San Diego Sports 760, iHeart San Diego as well. Now, you can't see him on camera, but then again, we can't see Brent on camera either. Do you want to sit over here? You want to sit
probably
here?
a good thing.
Hey, sit over here.
Okay.
Come over here. I'll put him over here. He's coming on. He's coming on over. So, first of all, Brian's a big Aztec, right?
Yeah, it was. Class of 97. Went to Zoom State.
Now, okay, so like what is this? And we're gonna get into this Padres managerial search. We'll do it with Brian Wilson because he's a huge Padres fan as well. What does like last night signify for you when you're thinking San Diego State basketball? They're in the national championship game last year. Like, are you seeing it as a celebration? Or are you like, forget about last year? I'm concerned about what they're gonna do this year. Like, how did you view last night and everything that happened at VA House?
I think it was a great baton kind of pass off to the guys that are no longer with the team, to the guys currently on it that deserved a little bit more acclaim for their kind of membership into the team, and to the newer members this year and guys that are holding more prominent roles. Brian Dutchers does a phenomenal job of doing the same thing what Steve Fisher did to him and being part of that culture for so long. And I love the ambitious schedule. I love the fact that they have a different look. I think he's still preaching defense. I love watching David Velasquez on the bench. Honestly, it's one of my favorite things to do. I love his enthusiasm. It's just something that they've kind of owned for so long, their defensive presence. And the athleticism was great. Some of the younger players were super exciting. You know, you and I are usually texting during games.
Yeah.
Being a lifelong Aztec and, having some other buddies that are always texting during these games. Football's been a little less enjoyable this year than the basketball last night.
Right.
Understandably, but it was exciting to see some guys that you always hope for, because you see names and you see guys sitting on the end of the bench and you ever wonder, are these guys going to ever get opportunities? And it was nice to see some of the younger guys step up and make an impact. And you kind of scratch your head a little bit going, I see something there. All right, cool.
Yeah.
One of the things that jumped out to me was Saunders' just frame.
Yeah.
And how hard he's worked. And if he could be physical and give, Lede just give him another presence down low, another big body at times, same thing with is it Hyde?
Yeah. Heidi.
Yeah. Heidi. Yeah. He needs to obviously gain some weight, but for a freshman, I think he's got some things there too. So I'm looking at the bigs and knowing that certain guys you're going to be matching up with. And that's where you think you're vulnerable not having Mensa, but at the same time, they looked very athletic in the front court.
Okay. So I'm curious, you said class of at San Diego State.
I was at 1997.
So, okay. The reason I asked that, you're before San Diego State basketball was San Diego State basketball.
I was Peterson Jim, San Diego State.
Right. So like I say this sometimes on air. I one time heard Brian Dutcher actually on a national radio show, even though we've had him a million times, but the specific words he said about the program have always stuck out to me. That when we got to San Diego State, it was a wasteland for college basketball, is what he said.
It was tough.
To imagine that, and you went through it because you were a student in the mid-90s and they were playing at Peterson or Sports Arena, to what it's become, and you're seeing this banner unfurled with the Houston Final Four logo. Like, it's pretty remarkable from what it was to what it is.
I think it makes you feel like you're kind of you're sitting at the big kid table, right?
Yeah.
San Diego State's always been that, like, potential and the upside, and whether it was the amazing teams I grew up with, and one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time, Todd Santos, and just airing it out in the old days of just vertical passing with the Aztecs, to then the amazing offensive teams, the Tom Kraft window coming in, obviously Marshall Falk and Wayne Pittman, shout out to Mary Mesa alum, and what they did there. And then obviously in recent years when Brady initially came in and completely flipped the culture football wise, brought on Rocky Long and this identity defensively, to then what they did, and how they've sustained being very good football wise has been great. Basketball, Peterson Gym, I remember going in college and you could hear conversations on the other side of the court. I mean, it was tough. I mean, San Diego in general, USD, doesn't get enough credit. They were the first ones to win a really like a tournament game, beating UConn.
Yeah.
And then having been in the media for the last 25 years, and a lot of it, early on being tied to on air or around the stations, I got to work on the Aztec broadcast or around it always. And I'm an Aztec.
Yeah.
And I care so bad, but to see this culture kind of like come to fruition. And it's so weird to say that you always hope, but you never really thought like a national championship game, like the Blue Bloods and everything else is there. You're like, why can't that be us instead of Florida Atlantic? Why can't that be us instead of VCU? Why can't that be us instead of, Butler? To see those kids, and then they are kids.
Yeah. To
go on that run and see that coaching staff, like just galvanize that team. That was magical. And I love the idea of that. To this day, I think my favorite thing that Dutch says is, well, we didn't accomplish our goal.
Yeah. I mean, there's still work to be done.
Because everyone else kind of feels like, wow, to get to that plateau was pretty freaking huge. But he's like, our goal is to win a national championship. So how do you not love that as an incoming, kid or a potential recruit, or where it's at? I think so much is made on the status level and where you rank. I think there's something to, you have a coaching staff that's committed to putting the very best on the floor and getting the most out of kids, buying into a concept and teaching team and teaching a lot of things. That's why you can be consistent and why you can be good every year, where some of the Blue Bloods, they're turning over egos and NILs and a lot of other things sometimes
Sure.
that factor in that don't allow them to be the best team, maybe the most talented, but not the best team.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. I think even to Brian Dutcher post game with his team last year in Houston, where he's like, now that we've gotten our taste, I'm paraphrasing, we're coming back. Hell or high water. Well, and you never know.
Yeah.
If it happens in 2024, like Butler, like that deja vu type thing, it's possible. Or you could be a blue blood, like we've talked about, a Kansas or Kentucky. You could go a decade between Final Four berths. So you don't really know. But once you've done it, you feel like you can do it again. And yeah, this team's completely different. But again, the beauty of college basketball and the difference between basketball and football's changing with an expanded playoff coming. But the thing with basketball is like you can actually say that. Like you can really preach it. Like we are going to make a run because teams have made runs like San Diego State did this past year.
Yeah, and then it permeates throughout the whole athletic department, right? It's okay, what have you done for me lately? I love talking about the past. We do it so well here in San Diego, right? Everyone just completely, wants to crap all over, San Diego in terms of sports. The sad part is our identity sometimes is at the expense of, economics and all these other factors, not just necessarily sometimes the play on the field. And so like right now you lose an NFL team and it's just been such a gut blow, but to then have that energy and the fusion last year of what San Diego State brought in March to then what the Padres did, to know what you can actually experience that I'd only done a couple times in my lifetime. I could tell you everything about the 84 playoffs. I was 10 years old. I mean, there for Garvey's home run, I could give you almost a play-by-play. I was there, 98 in San Diego. So at 49 years of age, I've only experienced a handful of things. Some of these younger kids are like, Aztecs go to bowl games every year. They're going to national championship game. I'm telling my kids, live in the moment. Like I've been waiting for this in my lifetime. My dad who's 76, he's only seen it in recent years. Like you got to think of that, not to be the martyr of the Boston fans back in the day, or some of those people that had that long lineage of not winning. But San Diego is so yearning for that one thing that even though they didn't achieve the national championship, I was so proud of those kids for that run that they did. It gave San Diego some identity there in a sport where we don't have an NBA team. And I think that's what made it even more special.
Yeah, no, it was, I think you said it perfectly. I think it's great perspective too, growing up in San Diego. Do you have 10 minutes for us? If we take a break, do you want to talk Padres on the other side?
Love to.
Okay, we're going to talk Padres because it's kind of the other side of the coin, even though 2022, and I talked about earlier, to your point, like 2022 was special. Yeah, 2023 wasn't, but they're not that far removed from that. Aztecs basketball, again, coming off a great year. Where do the Padres turn? Is there a mystery candidate or not? Brian Wilson, I heard San Diego with us here in studio. Jim, soft. He's sick. Stay with us.
Odd.
Stay with us here on Jon and Jim.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by Staples Stores. San Diego State started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee had 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday against BYU. Pregame with John starts at 5:30, and the tip is right after 6. In other college basketball news, Bill Self is now the highest paid college basketball coach. He signed an amended 5-year contract today, which he will make $53 million over the next 5 years. The Lakers are on the road in Houston tonight to take on the Rockets. Tip is at 5. And this Saturday, San Diego State football is back at it to take on Colorado State. Pregame starts at 2 p.m. with kick at 4. Staples Holiday Deals means amazing savings for the holiday season on hot tech like laptops, game systems, earbuds, and more. Right now, save up to $300 on select PCs. In-store only. Offer ends 11/11. See an associate for details. Have yourself a merry little holiday deal at Staples.
All right. Is there a mystery candidate or not? Brian Wilson in studio with us. Stay with us on Jon and Jim.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by Staples Stores. San Diego State started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee had 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday against BYU. Pregame with John starts at 5:30, and the tip is right after 6. In other college basketball news, Bill Self is now the highest paid college basketball coach. He signed an amended 5-year contract today, which he will make $53 million over the next 5 years. The Lakers are on the road in Houston tonight to take on the Rockets. Tip is at 5. And this Saturday, San Diego State football is back at it to take on Colorado State. Pregame starts at 2 p.m. with kick at 4. Staples Holiday Deals means amazing savings for the holiday season on hot tech like laptops, game systems, earbuds, and more. Right now, save up to $300 on select PCs. In-store only. Offer ends 11/11. See an associate for details. Have yourself a merry little holiday deal at Staples.
All right, so Jim is sick, we're told. So yesterday we're outside Viejas Arena. John Schaefer, Brian Wilson with you right now. And so Jim yesterday says, hey, I'm sick. And he sounded a little sick on air. He's got all these cough drops, but Jim's always sick.
He's a little bit of a drama queen. Yeah.
Which is saying something because I'm a drama queen. But Jim, like once he starts sneezing, he can't stop sneezing and his nose
but
is
then
running.
he has to tell everyone about it.
He tells everyone. So he's taking the day off, which is fine. I would have held him. If the Aztecs lost yesterday, he never would have heard the end of it because he wasn't at Viejas all of last year.
Right.
He went yesterday. So it's all good. So hopefully Jim will be back tomorrow. But we're talking about, well, again, you graduated from San Diego State. You're an Aztec. You're a lifelong Padres fan.
Yep.
Man, Padres, talk about highs and lows. 2022, we just talked about it. Great year. 2023, nobody really envisioned it. All this disappointment, all these questions heading in to the offseason, and they lose their manager as well. So where do you sit on this? Does it matter? Are you more concerned about the roster than you are the manager? Or how do you feel about the situation, how it's playing out?
It's interesting because I think as a Padre fan, you'd be like, wow, these have been some great years where there's expectations.
Right.
I feel like I've been more frustrated the last couple of years because of the amount of amenities they've given the front office at their fingertips to go do things and make moves and autonomy to spend money and a lot of things that the previous front offices didn't have, especially, obviously with KT. And it's weird because, again, you apply it to yourself and like how you've lived, and economics of sports have really always factored in. So as a Padre fan, as a kid, you were always talking in economical terms because you didn't have this endless payroll and you didn't ever think about being like the second or third highest spending team in baseball. You were like, okay, how are we going to make this work? That's how you did the hot stove league. And you're looking for economical plays and hoping for diamonds in the rough and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel a sense of embarrassment to a degree for this organization on how the expectations were so high and they kept just going on throughout the season and couldn't find, ever the source. As much as there's been stuff that's come out about obviously the relationship between the front office and the manager, to players and the manager, to the players in the front office, there's been no real answer as to why. I mean, I'm a big player guy, first off, but a lot of those players didn't live up to some of their expectations, or maybe even their averages. When you get big money, again, it's not me spending the money. you naturally hold on to it close and you're like, wow, some of these guys aren't earning their contracts. Well, that's not my money to spend. You're paying for their future, not necessarily what they've done in the past. And that's the part that gets frustrating, is because you spent a lot of money and you didn't get what you thought you were going to get back last year.
Yeah, there's no question. And it is weird, to your point. It's kind of like, everyone points the blame in different ways, right? Some people say, well, it's on the owner, where I'm like, well, the owner has spent unlike any owner in the history of the franchise. Or it's on the general manager. Fair. He's been here 9 years. There's been more failure than success. Or it was on the manager. And here's why. They had blown leads and they didn't use their bullpen effectively. And he didn't manage the dynamics of the clubhouse. Or it's on Manny Machado because it's Manny Machado. And like I always say, heavy is the head that wears the crown. But it's like, everyone understands clearly there was, a dynamic at play between Preller and Melvin that wasn't sustainable. Hence the fact that they're no longer sustaining it. But was it as simple as that? Okay, so Preller and Melvin don't see eye to eye, but Manny Machado has an off year and Xander Bogaerts doesn't perform. And, there's so many dynamics at play. There's other organizations where general managers and managers aren't the best of friends and you can have success. But in this circumstance, like 1 year, a lot of success. The next year, you don't have any success. So I feel like it's hard to put your finger on exactly what went wrong in 2023.
Yeah, and I'm not a big believer in just saying, oh, it just happened to be an anomaly. Look at the runs against number and based on the pressure situations and somehow that it's freak. No, there's something there systemic internally in there. I'm a big believer in baseball gods, and somehow they didn't respect the game in some way, shape, or form, and that's why a lot of bad luck went their way. I'm a big believer in that. It's uncanny how many situations they're in. All you need to do is elevate the ball. All you need to do is, get one more out. All you need to do is do one more thing. And they just weren't able to do it. And let alone all those games, you can go back and be like, oh, they're going to try to close the game out here with Luis Garcia because they did that the last 2 years. And even though he hasn't pitched well this year, that's the situation they're in because their closer won't throw more than 2 games in a row.
Right.
I know this is going to sound crazy, but I've said it to you guys and jokingly. It's like, Josh Hader might be one of the most overrated Padre pitchers in the history of the organization. For the amount of claim that comes with him, the amount of money that he makes, for his statistics that actually show up on paper. He never seemed to be in that many clutch situations for the Padres in his lifetime as a Padre.
It's interesting you say that, and a lot of that I would agree with. The only thing I would say is like the postseason against the Dodgers.
Sure,
when you're the Padres in the history of the franchise have had how many series wins in the postseason? We could count them on basically a hand, maybe into the second half, 5, 6, right? 84, 98, 2020.
Yeah, so 3.
Yeah, So there's handful, 5, 6, 7, whatever the number is. And Hader played an important role. I think there was a 4-out save in one of those games. Game 3 or game 4. So, but I get your point. Like this past year, and this was always the argument to why don't you just trade Josh Hader? Well, yeah, you're kind of in it, but this guy's not pitching in meaningful. You got the quote unquote best closer and the worst record in 1-run games. That doesn't add up.
And that's kind of where I'm going with this, right? How many times you see closers extend for a second inning to where it's at? I don't like that he's dictating too many terms. I just felt like a sense of the manager didn't have complete control and autonomy to do things how he wanted to do in a game. The front office had their way of how they wanted to do things and how they kowtowed to the players to a certain degree. And then the players kept saying, hey, man, we're just trusting the process. We got to be part of the process. We got to be, this is just, let's go through the season. Let's go through the season. You ended up at 82 and 80. You're literally only a couple games away from making the playoffs. And everyone that is a Padre fan or watched at least a half a dozen games can go back and count 2 or 3 games where they easily let games slip out of their fingertips. And it was like, no big deal. Padres just Padreing right now. That's the frustrating part about that. As you saw what happens when you all of a sudden get into the postseason and you have fans behind you and you have a home field advantage or you have guys catch on a roll, right? You saw what happens when guys, your biggest players, don't play behind you. Unfortunately, the Braves and Dodgers know firsthand exactly how that worked. But seeing what the Philadelphia Phillies are doing right now, there's this kind of weird, energistic I don't feel like they're the most talented team in baseball, but somehow in the postseason, they've been one of the more exciting teams to watch.
Oh, yeah.
There's a couple guys there that I truly do not like strictly because of how they had results against the Padres. And I've been like that in my lifetime. There's fantasy players that did wrong by me by not doing well, and I just don't like them, and I don't draft them ever again.
Yeah.
There's that guy Stott, the young player.
Yeah, Bryson Stott.
I can't stand that guy. I don't know what it is about him. Now, if he became a Padre, I'd probably be his biggest fan. I was like that with David Eckstein. Couldn't stand playing against him. All of a sudden, he's a Padre. I'm like, I love this gutty kid. Oh, my God. I love this gutty kid, right? I just watch his look. he's just got this kind of weird. I picture him with like a flat bill in college, like on that, look was there, and all those guys are doing that stuff, and it just bothers me. But that's just me as a baseball guy going, I want to find people that are so they hate losing more than they like winning. And I don't feel like the Padres had a lot of that last year, whether it was ego, whether it was I can't show my emotions because right now I want to take the high road. And I felt like there was definitely some of that. I just felt like they kept on thinking they're going to work themselves out of it, to then never work themselves out of it. And like some of them just get to move off, and then you're not going to bring back some of those guys because you had phenomenal contracts for us to benefit in 1 year, but for them to be able to opt out and now go leverage more dollars in the future. That team can never be assembled like that again. I mean, just based on where it was at.
It's a good point, and maybe you don't need to assemble it like that. As in, it's not as simple as you put all these stars together and this collection of talent wins. Because in baseball, it's not basketball where it's 3 guys and maybe the rest just you compile 2 or 3 stars and you can win. Although that's even changed in the NBA. Brian, great seeing you, man.
Oh man,
anytime Jim's not here, which is like
once a week.
Well, basically, yeah, he's sick. Basically, like
Brent
twice
loves
a week.
every minute of it too.
Yeah, I mean,
go ahead and pile on, Brent. Feel free to pile on.
It's fun, isn't it? Good seeing you, my friend.
Hey, absolutely.
Thanks for doing it. More on the Padres. Is there a mystery candidate or not? Is David Ross going to get consideration or not? Paul Garrison, East Village Times at 4:30. Jeff Fletcher, OC Register on Benji Gill's candidacy and Shohei Ohtani's free agency, plus tickets to give away to the Rady Children's Invitational. Hour 2, Jon and Jim, next. All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? This is hour 2 of Jon and Jim. We're with you until 6 p.m. You might be wondering where Jim is, or maybe you're not. But he is sick. He is out sick. I'm trying to think because, Brent, you've worked here for how long? We're putting Brent back in.
I feel like Jim now.
Yeah. Okay.
So
So
my mic on it works.
You've been
better.
here what? 10 years?
About 2 years before the Chargers left. So what year did they leave?
2017.
So yeah, since 2015.
So 8-9 years,
Yeah.
right? 9 years. And I could probably, let me guess, you've missed a day because you've been sick. I would guess somewhere between 0 and 1 time.
Twice.
Okay, so twice in 9 years.
One day because I was sick, and then that one disastrous day when I had to take Peanut to the vet and Jim had to run the board.
Yeah, but you weren't sick.
No, but I didn't come to work though.
True, but okay, but that's a reasonable. Listen, other things are fine. Like if there's an emergency or a situation, understandable. But in terms of being sick, you've missed a day.
Yeah. Well, technically, my 22 years of radio, I've had 2 sick days.
Yeah, I can see that with you. You are very reliable. By the way, Jim's very reliable. It's not like Jim's missing every single day for being sick. I'm trying to think, Brent. You've worked with me for a long time. I mean, I've been here 6.5 plus years. Have I missed? Now I missed days. I had my heart attack. Not really.
You lost your voice that one time.
I'm trying to. I lost my voice.
Yeah.
Oh, that was a disaster. Oh yeah, Brian Long made me not go on the air for a couple of days.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but it's like, what can you do if you lose your voice? But other than that, I'm like, I got to do the show. You know, yeah. And I'm not scared. And it's probably a bad mark on me. I'm like, yeah, I'm sick, but I'm going to do the show. Like, it's probably not good for Jim when I do that. So Jim probably made the right decision. He might prevent me or you from getting sick. So anyway, Jim's out today. Long way of saying that. Hopefully he'll be back feeling better at some point here later this week. We do have Paul Garrison from the East Village Times. He was covering San Diego State basketball last night. He's been covering the football program, of course, for a good period of time as well. He'll join us coming up at 4:30. Later this hour, we are going to do Trainwreck Radio. Brent, I'll just be like the designated lifeline.
It's just John versus John. When you were gone that one day, we did Jim versus Jim.
Yeah, I heard that. I like that. So we'll do John versus John, sports trivia or trivia, Trainwreck Radio. We are playing today for a pair of tickets to the Rady Children's Invitational. This is single day tickets for the championship Friday. Winner will get to see the championship game and the consolation game. Tickets and info at RadyChildren'sInvitational.com. This includes really good field, SC, Seton Hall, Oklahoma, and Iowa. Coming up this Thanksgiving at Lion Tree Arena. So we'll give those away later this hour. We have Jeff Fletcher, the Angels beat writer from the OC Register, joining us at 5:30. We'll talk about Benji Gill's candidacy coming up at 5:30. We could get to the wrap later in the hour. We never really have hit on the topic, one of the topics of the day, which is, do the Padres now include in their search David Ross or not? And we touched on this briefly yesterday, and it hits home for Brent because he's a Cubs fan. And the Cubs are the organization that made this. I think Jed Hoyer said today it was a very hard decision to replace his manager with another sitting manager in Craig Counsell. He thought it was an upgrade. He thought it's a business where you got to make hard decisions. He thinks it's going to lead to more wins for the Chicago Cubs. But A, what does it say about David Ross? And where does it leave David Ross? And do the Padres now want to get involved in these David Ross sweepstakes, if there are even any?
I don't think it would hurt to talk to him. I don't know how seriously I would consider him. But it wouldn't hurt to talk to him. He's kind of, we've been harping about them hiring, first-time managers and guys with not a lot of experience. Ross literally went from being the backup catcher on that World Series team into the manager's spot once Madden left.
Right.
So he's been literally learning on the fly. He didn't do Sandberg and some of those guys did when they're down in the minors and they had some seasoning with it. He just got thrown in there. So he's been learning on the fly. So if you go with him, it's in a way going to be kind of like hiring a first-time manager, even though would be in his 3rd or 4th year because he's still learning. But I don't know. It wouldn't hurt to talk to him. I'd still, I'd rather have him than Flaherty.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, what is the harm?
I'm kind of in the boat now of anybody but Flaherty, which means they're going to hire Flaherty.
Yeah, exactly. It's interesting because I want to talk about, basically there's 4 people to discuss. And then there's this idea that is there someone else, which you can't put past, I guess, any team in a search, but certainly not the Padres when you consider the hires. Andy Green, a little bit out of left field. Jace Tingler, a lot of bit out of left field. Bob Melvin, it was surprising when they hired him, seen as a very good hire, obviously. But here's the thing. To your point, what does it hurt? And maybe they're going through this process. They haven't made a hire. It's been a couple of weeks. Maybe they are talking, in fact, with David Ross. To your point, what does it hurt? What if you glean something from him, or there's something in that conversation or interview that, puts him in a different light where you think he'd be the right candidate for the position? I don't see how it would hurt. It's not like you've got Bob Melvin as a possible manager that you're going to hire. That's what you don't have this time around. You have question marks everywhere. Mike Schill, why hasn't he managed recently? Ryan Flaherty, what's the appeal? Okay, he's got a relationship with AJ. He's got a relationship with Manny Machado, but he's been here. He's been your, hitting coach, offensive coordinator. What's the appeal coming off 2023? Benji Gill, I could sell you on Benji Gill. Shoot, did you see there was something going viral on social media?
Hanging out with the president of Mexico.
Yeah, the president of Mexico is like making speeches about Benji Gill as a candidate for the Padres. So
no big deal.
Yeah, he's got some, he's got some people in his corner, so to speak. And I can make a very good argument for Benji Gill. And we'll talk to Jeff Fletcher from the OC Register coming up at 5:30 about Benji Gill. But don't you agree, Brent? It's not like anyone is so convincing that it's just hitting you smack in the face. This is so obvious that, there's no reason to talk to David Ross, but that's not the situation.
Yeah, none of the four other, I guess Benji Gill maybe sticks out a little more than the others, but none of them really grab your attention. Be like, oh yeah, they got to go get that guy. If they go get that guy, he's going to be the one that's going to lead this team to the World Series, and he's going to be the one that, stabilizes some of the dysfunction in the clubhouse and everything. None of those guys really scream that, even including David Ross. None of those guys are just like, oh yeah, if he comes in, they're all just kind of, I guess, milquetoast in a way to where they're just kind of very similar.
Well, I would say this is like, it's not to say, and Jim has said this, and I agree with this point. I think I've probably said it as well. It's not to say you can't win with one of these managers. You absolutely can. There's a lot of complexities to winning, and it goes a lot above a manager. But with all that being said, there's also a part of me that's like, well, you might have to get kind of lucky, because maybe you get this right, maybe you don't. And if you don't get this right, you're probably switching over your GM. I mean, let's be honest. If this team doesn't win again in 2024, they're going to stick with AJ Preller. That doesn't make a lot of sense. So, and that means you're going to have a changeover potentially at manager as well. And that goes back to this chicken egg thing. The reason you're not getting candidates like Craig Counsell, and maybe there's a couple of reasons. The Padres don't have that kind of money. And B, I don't think they offer that type of stability to a potential managerial candidate. So you're not getting candidates like Craig Counsell. And when you see names like Carlos Mendoza or now David Ross, who was just fired, or Benji Gill, it's like, they must be thinking to themselves that if I go to San Diego and I don't win, am I even going to get a second year? And I think that's a fair question to ask with the Padres coming off a disappointing year.
I feel too like the longer they wait, the choice is going to get made for them, because the more they keep procrastinating, names are just going to get taken off the list because they're going to go elsewhere. For weeks it was, it's a done deal. Counsell's going to go to the Mets because he's going to go reunite with the former GM there. And, it's just a done deal. And then I wake up, yesterday, and it's like, what?
Right. Yeah.
So, and I read a thing this morning that Hoyer didn't even talk to Counsell until yesterday, or until the day they signed.
So it just all came together in like
it just all
a couple hours.
Well, because they didn't want to ask the Brewers for permission to interview him. So they had to wait until after November 1st before they could talk to him without asking for permission. And so they just randomly just went and talked to him, and then they signed him. So it's like I said, it won't hurt to just talk to David Ross. Just because you talk to him doesn't mean you have to sign him.
Right. And it might not work. Maybe Ross doesn't think he's the right candidate. Maybe Preller and Sadler don't think he's the right fit for the organization. Maybe he wants too much money. Maybe he wants too many years. But I don't see. And maybe they are having that conversation.
And they talk to the other guys. Who knows? Maybe Ross will say something that just will make, just from the interview process go, okay, he sticks out a little more than the other ones did. So maybe we're glad we talked to him. So,
right.
It's not going to hurt anything.
No, it's definitely not going to hurt anything. And maybe they're having those conversations right now. Now, I know it's the general manager meetings going on in Arizona. We've seen a lot of hires across baseball over the last 24 hours. There are still some vacancies out there. including San Diego. Again, it's going to be a talking point until it's done, but I don't see it as some huge thing hanging over the franchise. You just got to get it over and done with because you got other things to accomplish this offseason. But if it's Tuesday, like today, great. If it's Thursday, great. It's not going to take 2 months. They're not going to make this hire in February. It's going to happen. What day? I don't know, but it's obviously going to happen at this point.
As long as they hire somebody that is an actual fit for the team, opposed to, like I said, they have to be on some sort of a timetable. Like I said, they can't just sit back and just wait forever, because otherwise good candidates will be gone. But at the same time, they don't want to rush and just go and sign somebody just to sign somebody and then have him not be the right fit. So then we're back right where we are right now, 2 years from now again.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously from an AJ's perspective, there are no more manager hires. I'm sorry. It doesn't work like that. I don't care what Peter says. The only scenario being you win and change managers because whatever happens, the manager goes elsewhere or professional sports. And yes, maybe stability matters to Peter Seidler, but not above all else. At some point, you're going to have to win and you're going to have to get this right. And I agree with you that if the next year or two don't go well, you're not going to allow your general manager to make another hire. So it's important. And it's weird what they've done previously, if we're being honest. All three have been interesting. Andy Green, unforeseen, chosen over Ron Gardenhire, right? And then you could add Ron Washington. You went with Jace Tingler. Bob Melvin was out of the box. Credit to AJ Preller for thinking about it. And now, there's no through line or trend here, potentially, with these four managers. Andy Green, Jace Tingler, Bob Melvin, Ryan Flaherty. Your through line is what? 3 first-time managers? If it's Gill, 3 first-time managers. If it's Schilt, okay, you're somewhere in the middle. You don't have the same experience as Melvin, but you're not as green as some of the others, but you got question marks because of how you left St. Louis. So I don't know what to make of it, is my point. It's not like, it seems like each time he goes through the process, he has different criteria to determine what he's looking for in a manager.
Well, because the previous manager that he's chosen has failed and they had to get rid of him. So, if, take Andy Green, for instance, if he decided, well, Andy, you're not the guy to, get the job done, so you have to go, they're not going to go out and hire somebody that, checks off all the boxes of what Andy Green was, because otherwise, why didn't you just keep Andy Green? So it's kind of like how, in like elections, sometimes they'll vote one party for like 4 years and they'll go another party for 4 years. It's like they'll just keep switching it up, hoping that eventually, it's going to change. So that's kind of what he's doing, because like I said, went from Andy Green, then he went to Jace Tingler, who, just managed everything in his mind. He did all those World Series and everything. And then they went from Jace Tingler to Melvin, who was the complete opposite of what he was.
Yeah, it's a really good point. I was thinking about football. It's like sometimes you got like an offensive-minded coach and it doesn't work out. Like, we need to get back to the defense, right? Our defense has been Swiss cheese. Or you got a defensive-minded coach and you make a change. Like, we need to be better on offense. Like, that's typical when you make a change. You make that change. Like, this didn't work and we went this direction, so we did yang, and now we're going to yang. So that makes sense. I don't know what that's going to be though for Melvin. Like, if one way is like, if you're going 180 for Melvin, you're thinking you're going green, like not Andy Green, like a green manager, like maybe a first-time manager. Where if you went with Mike Schilt, I wouldn't see that as a 180 for Melvin. I mean, he's in your organization. He's been a previous manager. He's in the middle or later stages of his career professionally. I just don't know what the criteria is. I do know this. Of course, they have to get it right, and they need to put themselves in position to get in the postseason in 2024. Those are the expectations. You drew 3.2 million fans in 2023. You spent $250-something million in your payroll. It's unacceptable not to be in position to make the postseason. Easier said than done. Go find the guy that puts them in that spot. I don't know who that's going to be, but it's not going to be satisfactory, and you're not going to draw the same amount. You're not going to draw 3.2 million fans if you go 82-80 again. Like, you're going to have to be better. What do you have off the text line?
619, is Jim really sick, or is he having drinks with AJ and considering taking the Padres manager job?
Yeah, I don't know if that's where AJ is going to turn. It would be interesting. Everyone says AJ likes yes men. He wouldn't be getting that with Jim. I know that. Let's see. 619 says each new manager, Preller always says moving forward. Fill in the blank, but he should know by now what needs to be done moving forward. I don't even know what needs to be done moving forward. This roster is way more concerning. We said this yesterday, way more concerning than who they're going to hire at manager. He's got 3/5 of a rotation, arguably the best 3/5 that are going to be gone. You've got Juan Soto's status moving forward, hanging over the organization. You've got Josh Hader's situation at the back of your bullpen. So you have a million questions. This is just one additional question. But in terms of what he needs to do to move this organization forward, it's less about the manager and more about all these decisions with the roster still to come.
Yeah, and it's one of those too about how he's, will the manager get along with the players opposed to, are we going to put somebody in there it's like the old adage that they always use for like parents about how, oh, you have to choose whether you want to be their parent or their friend with their kid. Are we going to get a manager that's, hire someone that's going to go in there just because he's buddy with Manny or Tatis, or are we going to get somebody that's go in there and manage, and if somebody needs to get an ass chewing, then he's going to light them up and just not, he's going to go out there and he's going to parent instead of just be more concerned about being their friend in the clubhouse. He's going to be more manager first.
Isn't it amazing, like the complexities we're talking about when these players are already like $30 million a year players? Like it shouldn't take that. That's what's unique about baseball. Like it shouldn't take the right manager to get the most out of Manny Machado, but I understand it's a part of the sport. It's not solely a critique of Machado because it is a part of the sport, but it's not like sometimes it does in the NFL. Don't get me wrong. Coaching absolutely matters. Play calling absolutely matters, but like a good wide receiver, even with a bad coach, is still a good wide receiver. Oftentimes, like he's going to compile, he's going to get numbers. Now you might not win, where it feels like we put so much of this emphasis on like catering to these stars and making sure you have the right influences and the right staff that surrounds them to squeeze everything out of these players. Where I'm like, excuse me, this player is being paid handsomely, is a potential future Hall of Famer, finished second last year in MVP voting. He's got to maximize his own abilities, regardless of whether it's David Ross or Joe Torre or Ryan Flaherty or me or you.
And I don't like when they bring in managers just to appease an individual, please an individual,
right?
Bring in a manager that's going to get along with the whole team, so then you don't get a situation where, oh, well, he only likes Fernando and Manny. He doesn't care about us. They get they get the treatment because they make the big money, but they don't care about us,
right?
That doesn't really install like a team mentality and team attitude when it's like, oh, these three guys, they get to do whatever they want and they get special treatment, and then you guys are expected to do everything that you're supposed to do and don't complain about it or you're going to get in trouble.
And again, maybe speaks to the issues that they had in 2023, this whole idea of like culture. What is this, high school baseball? Like, yeah, it's just out of whack, and they need to, it's like when you're out of alignment and you need to get back in alignment, and I don't know how to do it. It's not my job. I can offer my opinion on it, but the more I do and the longer this offseason like continues, as we're about a month into it or more, from a Padres perspective, the more I'm like, man, there's work to be done. And forget about the manager. There's some work to be done there, but there's some work to be done with this team. All right, Paul Garrison, East Village Times, was at Viejas last night. He'll get into San Diego State's opening night victory, what's ahead for this Aztec team, this new look San Diego State basketball team. Also, what's ahead for football? Now 3-6 on the year, 3 regular season games remaining, including this weekend in Fort Collins against Colorado State. Paul Garrison on the other side. Rady Children's Invitational College basketball tickets to give away later this hour. And stay with us right here on Jon and Jim. All right, fans of San Diego sports or Aztec fans, I've got the perfect holiday gift for you, an amazing collectible commemorating the biggest moment in San Diego sports history, arguably, Lamont Butler's buzzer beater in the Final Four this past April. I get chills thinking about it, sitting there courtside in Houston. It was incredible. You need to check this item out for yourself right now at butleratthebuzzer.com. So visit butleratthebuzzer.com. Wherever you are, assuming you're not driving, or write that down. Remember it. This is your opportunity to relive this historic moment with a limited edition collectible benefiting Lamont Butler's NIL efforts and Aztec Links Collective that benefits San Diego State student athletes. Each print is signed by Lamont Butler, authenticated and numbered. And once it's gone, it's gone. There are just dozens of these available. And again, best of all, you're supporting San Diego State student athletes. You need to visit butleratthebuzzer.com to see these beautiful collectibles for yourself. And again, once they're gone, they're gone. One print, one signing, the perfect holiday gift. Supporting San Diego State student athletes. Check it out at butleratthebuzzer.com.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee had 27 points and 10 boards for San Diego State. The team is on the road this Friday at BYU. Pregame starts at 5:30 with the tip shortly after 6. In NFL news, the Rams signed Carson Wentz today to take over for the injured Matthew Stafford. Stafford's previous backup, Brett Rippon, was waived. In other college basketball news, Kansas's Bill Self is the new highest paid college basketball coach. He signed an amended 5-year contract, which will see that he gets $53 million over the next 5 years. San Diego State football is on the road this Saturday at Colorado State. Pregame starts at 2 p.m. with kicks shortly after 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
SJL Stevens, thank you, man, for the very generous super chat. Sorry for the delay in getting to you. It's been a little hectic over here, but thank you, man. He says, got your back, Jim. We are seeing patients all day long with the symptoms you have. Hope you feel better soon. I know people have been under the weather, seriously, and hopefully Jim is feeling better come tomorrow or later in the week. SJL Stevens, thank you for your support of the channel. Guys, we really do appreciate your super chats. We get to all of them during our commercial breaks here on the radio. So thank you, SJL Stevens. Thank you guys for hanging out. We'll be back in a moment. And get well soon, Jim.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their 2023 season with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton. Jaden Ledee had 27 points and 10 boards for San Diego State. The team is on the road this Friday at BYU. Pregame starts at 5:30 with the tip shortly after 6. In NFL news, the Rams signed Carson Wentz today to take over for the injured Matthew Stafford. Stafford's previous backup, Brett Rippon, was waived. In other college basketball news, Kansas's Bill Self is the new highest paid college basketball coach. He signed an amended 5-year contract, which will see that he gets $53 million over the next 5 years. San Diego State football is on the road this Saturday at Colorado State. Pregame starts at 2 p.m. with kicks shortly after 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
All right, we've got tickets for you to give away during the later this hour, actually. We've got Rady's Children's Invitational College Basketball tickets later this month at Lion Tree on the campus of UCSD. So we'll give away those tickets coming up in about 15 minutes. But speaking of college hoops, Paul Garrison, East Village Times, is with us. Let's talk some San Diego State basketball and football with Paul, who's always gracious with his time for us here on Jon and Jim, San Diego Sports 760. Paul, we appreciate it. What did you think of last night? I mean, your impressions of this new look San Diego State team, all the festivities surrounding the game, and then the way the team performed.
Starting with the festivities, I thought it was just terrific. Steve Fisher was walking around on Steve Fisher Court before the game, and Jamal Franklin they showed up on the big screen, and so I think there was that continuity and that celebration of the entire program, obviously with the culmination of the Final Four banner. I thought that, it was just, you could feel the excitement in the building. And I think people really wanted to celebrate everything that had done. And I think every single time Lamont Butler's name was mentioned, there was a huge ovation and everybody was just appreciative and excited that they were Aztecs, and everyone kind of shared in that last year. And then as far as the game is concerned, I think it showed all of the different facets that San Diego State is going to be paying attention to as soon as Friday in Provo. They blew out a team that won 20 games a year ago. They were down one starter. Cal State Fullerton was. Obviously, San Diego State was too. But this was a very veteran team. I mean, in some regards, Cal State Fullerton was really impressive. It's their ability to experience all of that we just described, fall behind 14-0, and then claw all the way back in. It shows the veteran group that they are. But that San Diego State was able to blow that team out, and they didn't do it because they shot terribly well from three. I mean, what does this team look like when all of those open threes that they got last night go in? And so I think you see the potency there. The flip side of it is they struggled with securing offensive rebounds or defensive rebounds, and that was what allowed Fullerton to get back in the game. But I think it was just an all-around very exciting night. And, for one night anyway, they definitely look like they belong in that top 25.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I agree with you. And there's so much that goes into it, and you don't know what you're going to see from your team, like if you're part of the coaching staff or if you're a fan. But I think they answered the bell, right? I mean, Fullerton put some pressure on. It was a close game at the half, but San Diego State found a way. What's the impact here of not having Darion Trammell? I mean, we saw it a bit last night. You got some younger guards backing up Lamont Butler that, are still taking advantage, obviously, of opportunities because they're younger players. But, how impactful is not having Darion, and what impact is that going to have on San Diego State?
I think it's huge. I think, Ian, there's so many different facets to it. I mean, the first part of it is, Darren Trammell was their best player during the NCAA tournament run, like most consistent player. Obviously he was I think they announced last night that he was the first Aztec to ever be named the MVP of a regional. He was terrific. And so for just the positive that he's going to bring to the team, I think you allow him to be able to kind of take that next level of being the second year in the program and what all of that means. I think the flip side of it is, especially on the defensive side, is because of his absence, they haven't really played small in terms of, having a true wing on pairing with Jaden Ledee down low. Elijah Saunders started last night. They obviously played DeMarshe Johnson, Miles Heide. And so that gives them decent size. And they haven't been able to kind of work in what it would look like when Darion comes back. And now it's Micah Parrish, Reese Waters, and that group and how they work together. And so just not being able to have that practice is going to make it harder to be able to move forward. And I guess just timing wise, but they've had a lot of it in practice. And Darren, he looked pretty good in warmups, and so I would guess he'd be back sooner.
Yeah, hopefully for San Diego State, because Paul, as you and I know, I mean, the schedule is daunting, which I think can be a good thing, right? It's college basketball, not football. It's not like you have to win every game. I go back to last year. They had a couple of hiccups in Maui, and I think long-term they were better off for it. But it seems like it's the type of schedule, Paul, when you look at it with BYU and still to come Gonzaga and like a St. Mary's, potentially a Xavier, at Grand Canyon. There are others in there as well. It seems like the type of non-conference schedule where like you're going to want to be healthy because you got some opportunities to build a resume over the next couple of weeks.
I think that's exactly right. And they still play in the Mountain West, and there's always that conversation about the seeding and things of that nature for the NCAA tournament, depending on what they do in the non-conference schedule. And the one on Friday, it obviously starts there. I mean, they've won 4 games and 34 tries in the history at BYU, and each one of them, was I think really important, obviously, but they don't do it very often, and if they're able to figure out a way to go and do that on Friday, I think it would be a great just sort of announcement to the country that somehow improbably after graduating so many key contributors that somehow Brian Dutcher has figured out a way to reload.
Yeah, it really is incredible. And it's a big one Friday night right here on San Diego Sports 760, 6 o'clock Pacific. Pregame coverage will begin at 5:30. And then there's Saturday in Fort Collins for San Diego State football. And Paul, I know you've been covering this program and you've been following along throughout the course of 2023. And now 3-6 on the year, and so many close games that haven't gone their way. It feels like a bit of a theme. Boise State, Nevada driving on that final possession. This past week in double overtime, even with a 7-point lead in the first overtime. What are you seeing right now? And do you feel as if there's, a breakthrough coming that they've been in all these close games, or how are you seeing it right now, 3-6?
I mean, it's hard to say what this team is going to be. I mean, they have been unpredictable, and so it's challenging to know exactly what they're going to do week in and week out. But how much different, to your point, would the prospect, the idea of the season be if they were to have won 1 or 2 of those close games, and their bowl prospects would look way different, and maybe just the feeling around the team. I mean, I definitely think they absolutely are capable of that breakthrough. They talked after the game, this last game against Utah State. They talked about their goal is still to make a bowl, and as hard as that seems, they can't be hard to them because they're the ones who have to do it. So I think that'll be there, and I'll be heading to Fort Collins here in a couple of days. But just looking forward to seeing that. I think that there was some really good signs this last week of just the effort and the competitiveness and the culture that San Diego State has built itself on, that it's still present and it's still thriving. But, just end of the day, they got to win.
No doubt about it. They got 3 more opportunities to do that this weekend in Fort Collins, next week at San Jose State, and then the regular season finale, which will be at home against Fresno State Thanksgiving weekend. It feels as if, Paul, correct me if I'm wrong, I mean, defensively, it looks like you're seeing some improvement because they didn't look like themselves really in the first half of the year. I mean, statistically, they've been as good as like a top 10 defense at times over the last decade. That hasn't been the case this year. There's still been some big plays or broken plays against the defense, but last couple of games, I mean, Nevada, you can't put that on the defense. And then this past weekend against Utah State, I mean, the Aggies, they didn't score much. They scored 17 points in regulation. What are you seeing from the defense right now?
Your description is accurate. I think that they have, and now seemingly for the second year in a row, kind of started slowly and kind of figured some things out. And you could chalk it up to the fact that maybe Nevada is not very good, although they've had some great passing games and offensive games. Most notably against like USC, where they just threw all over the Trojans, and weren't able to do that against San Diego State. But Utah State is a different conversation. They played well offensively virtually their entire year. And the fact that San Diego State was able to step up, I think, was big. Josh Hunter, who went to Mater Dei Santa Ana, he has started the last two games. He had some recruiting hype because he's undersized. He's the son of Brian Hunter, the former Atlanta Brave. And I talked to his high school head coach and when he committed to San Diego State, and Mater Dei Santa Ana is like the premier high school program in the country, filled with 5-star recruits all the way through there. And their head coach said that Josh Hunter was their best player for the one of the best defenses in the country, and that if he were just a few inches taller, he'd be playing everywhere he could play anywhere he wanted to in the country. And kind of true to form, as a redshirt freshman, he's come in and at that warrior safety position, he's really solidified it. He's made those instinctual plays that he's kind of been rumored in practice to have been making. And I think it's really put a calming kind of element to it. JD Coffey also, it's kind of switched and started at safety. And so I think as they've been able to control that back end a little bit and force teams to have to put drives together as opposed to giving up the big plays, it makes their overall play as a defense look a lot better.
Paul, always love the insight. Safe travels this weekend to Fort Collins. Again, a great resource for San Diego State athletic fans, whatever it is. Paul Garrison at the East Village Times. Paul, thank you as always for doing it.
Thanks for calling, man.
All right. That was Paul Garrison. All right. We need two callers right now. We're going to play Trainwreck Radio. That is trivia. First two callers are going to be playing for a pair of tickets to the Rady Children's College Basketball Invitational the day after Thanksgiving at Lion Tree Arena with USC, Iowa, Seton Hall, and Oklahoma. You're going to see all four of those teams. We have 2 free tickets for that College Basketball Invitational. You need to call if you want to play. 844-570-1360. Call right now if you want 2 free tickets to the Rady Children's College Basketball Invitational. The number to call is 844-570-1360. This is for Championship Friday, the day after Thanksgiving. 844-570-1360. 2 free tickets to see USC, Seton Hall, Iowa, Oklahoma. Tickets and info at RadyChildren'sInvitational.com. Call right now if you want those tickets. We'll play some sports trivia on the other side. 844-570-1360. That's next. All right, the dirty little secret isn't really a secret. San Diego is among the most expensive cities to live in the United States. And with the year almost over, you might need cash for the holidays. It makes sense. Or you want to be credit card debt free for the new year. You can call Loan Pronto today. Their Express Equity line of credit can get you $20,000, $50,000, $100,000 in as little as 5 days. You've got a ton of equity in your home, and Loan Pronto can help you turn that equity into cash. You can access up to 95% of your home's value and use the money to pay off all those credit cards or pay off personal loans or start that home improvement project you've been waiting to do. You can get the money you need now and still keep your primary mortgage intact, so your 3% rate is protected. And with Loan Pronto's Express Equity Line program, 90% of the time, there's no need for an appraisal, so you get your money super fast. Get the holiday cash you need or pay off all those credit cards before the new year. Get yourself on solid financial footing before the year ends. Call Loan Pronto now. Write this number down, 619-207-4336, 619-207-4336, or go to loanpronto.com. Call 619-207-4336, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS 1661781, subject to lender approval. Okay, you got that.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their season off with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton last night. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday against BYU. Pregame with John starts at 5:30, and the tip will be shortly after 6. Ohio State remained number 1 in the latest college football playoff rankings. The rest of the top 8 teams remained unchanged from a week ago. And Kansas coach Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. He amended his 5-year contract today. Self will make more than $13 million in compensation for the 2023-24 season and $53 million over the next 5 years. San Diego State football is also on the road this weekend as they take on Colorado State. Saturday, pregame starts at 2 with kick at 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
All right, John and Jim back with you without Jim. Jim is sick, and I don't know what that necessarily means for tomorrow. Maybe he'll be healthy. Maybe he'll be sick. But no, he texted me. You know how I knew he was sick, Brent, is he texted me at 8:30 in the morning. That's what he sounded like. Yeah, because he was awake. That's exactly right. And he said, let's see. What did he say? He said, so I woke up feeling like, not good, and had the sweats all night. So, I mean, if he was up at 8:30, he's sick because he wouldn't be up at 8:30. It's as simple as that. Like, do we think, is this like Ferris Bueller and he's like at Disneyland or something?
Yeah, we're gonna turn on the Laker game tonight. He's gonna be like in Houston,
Exactly.
hang out with LeBron.
Exactly. That's exactly right. So anyway, Jim, hopefully get well soon. Hopefully he'll be back with us later on in the week. Coming up, by the way, next hour, we're going to be joined by Jeff Fletcher. He covers the Angels beat. We've had him with us on Jon and Jim before. He works with the OC Register. And we're going to talk to him about Benji Gill's candidacy as a potential manager and also about Shohei Ohtani as a free agent, excuse me. I get it. The San Diego thing is, more unlikely than not, obviously. But Benji Gill, I mean, maybe it has legs. Maybe not. I mean, it could still very well be Mike Schilt or Ryan Flaherty, but there's been a lot of discussion around Benji Gill. So we'll talk to Jeff Fletcher about him.
Benji Gill for manager, the president of Mexico for hitting coach.
Perfect. Everything's fixed. So Jeff Fletcher at 5:30. We'll get to the wrap of the 5 o'clock hour. Right now, let's play.
All right, 3 questions, 2 contestants, 1 lifeline. Today's 2 contestants, we have Dan and Christian. Dan, you called in first, so you have your choice of John or John. Who do you want to go with?
Okay, Mr. Schaefer.
Okay, I like that. That.
That's half joke, half force of habit, because I forgot Jim wasn't here.
Right.
All right, so you guys will both have John today. So, Dan, you called in first. So, since you don't have a choice, then for teammates, since there's only one, Dan, you will get to go first today, since you don't get your choice. And so today's question, guys, the college basketball season got underway yesterday. Can you name the 10 Division I programs with the highest winning percentage in the nation since the start of the 2019-20 season? So we're looking for the 10 D1 programs with the highest winning percentage since 2019 season.
Well, this is up my alley, so I'm excited for this.
Yeah, it's a good day to only have John for a lifeline. Okay, do you guys got it?
Yeah.
Dan, you're going to be up first.
10, so I'm going to go Kansas, number 1.
Kansas, top 10 winning percentage since 2019 on the list. They're not number 1, though, I don't think.
No, they're not.
They're not. Okay, so that was Dan?
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, so Dan, you've got the 1-0 lead here. So now, Christian, your first guess.
Kentucky.
Kentucky, top 10 since 2019. I don't know about that. No. Always good, but I want to say there was an off year in there.
Yeah, like the last year or the year before.
Yeah, they missed the tournament one of those years, didn't they? Yeah. All right, so doors open here for Dan to take a 2-0 lead.
All right. I am proud to say I'm a season ticket holder, and my Aztecs should be up there.
Love it. Oh, yeah. Yes, this was on my pregame show yesterday, so I know this. San Diego State, I want to say, is third.
They are.
Yeah. All right, San Diego State is third. All right, Christian, you need to get this right. You do have a lifeline. What's your second guess?
Ohio State.
Ohio State basketball? No, and that's it. Dan's the winner. No, now Ohio State combined football, basketball win percentage is great. And they've always got good basketball, but great football. But no, Ohio State basketball is not top 10 over the last 4 years. I know a few, Brent. Let me try. I've seen this note in San Diego State's notes. So number 1 is Gonzaga. Number 2 is Houston. Number 3 is San Diego State. From there, it gets tricky for me. Kansas, like you said, and Baylor.
Yep. Flip-flop the order.
Okay. Baylor and Kansas. I would think Duke would be top 10.
They're 10.
They're 10th. There's a couple of randos in there.
Yeah, you're not going to get.
It's like Belmont. Is Belmont in there? Okay, yeah,
like
Belmont.
3 out of the last 4 are all randos.
Belmont, and I don't know who else.
Arizona is the only big name. Vermont.
Yeah, that's random.
And then Liberty.
Yeah, that's random. Yeah, those are random.
Liberty.
All right, so congratulations to Dan, who is the winner here with our trivia today. Trainwreck Radio. He's won a pair of tickets to the Rady Children's Invitational. This is for Friday's championship game and consolation game. The Rady Children's Invitational is a men's college basketball tournament right here in San Diego, and the first ever event is Thanksgiving 2023, Lion Tree Arena, UC San Diego's campus. with 4 elite college basketball programs committed to the Invitational through 2024. This holiday tournament promises an unforgettable weekend of basketball, beaches, and the best San Diego has to offer. The 2023 field includes the Iowa Hawkeyes, SC Trojans, Seton Hall Pirates, and Oklahoma Sooners. Tickets and information at Rady's Children, or excuse me, Rady Children's Invitational.com. There's Rady Children's Invitational.com. Next hour, we will get to the wrap. Plus, Jeff Fletcher on Benji Gill as a manager candidate for the Padres and Shohei Ohtani entering free agency. Plus, Brent's back page with Jim out. It's hour 3 of Jon and Jim, and it's next.
Here's what's trending from the iHeart Sports Network, presented by DraftKings Fantasy Sports. The Aztecs started their season off with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton last night. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 boards. The team is on the road this Friday against BYU. Pregame with John starts at 5:30, and the tip will be shortly after 6. Ohio State remained number 1 in the latest college football playoff rankings. The rest of the top 8 teams remained unchanged from a week ago. And Kansas coach Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. He amended his 5-year contract today. Self will make more than $13 million in compensation for the 2023-24 season and $53 million over the next 5 years. San Diego State football is also on the road this weekend as they take on Colorado State. Saturday, pregame starts at 2 with kick at 4. Check out what DraftKings has to offer this season with code SPORTS, because life's more fun when you're in on the action. DraftKings, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Age and eligibility restrictions apply. Void where prohibited. See DraftKings.com for details.
All right, San Diego and Southern California, what's going on? This is the final hour of Jon and Jim. We do have Jeff Fletcher from the OC Register joining us at 5:30. He covers the Angels. We'll ask him about Benji Gill as a managerial candidate for the Padres, also about Shohei Ohtani as a free agent. We'll get to the wrap coming up in a moment as well. We have Brent's back page with Jim out.
And I had a Jim moment
What happened?
in my updates. I looked at the schedule wrong. Lakers Rockets is actually tomorrow night at 5. I've been telling everyone it's tonight at 5.
But it's tomorrow.
Yes, thanks YouTube chat for pointing that out.
Okay, so this is how you end up. I feel like tonight is a Tuesday, is a bit of a slow sports night. If you don't have NBA, we don't have NFL. We do have a little bit of college basketball. We're literally watching on ESPN the Deep Eddie Vodka Celebrity Pickleball Showdown.
That's probably where Jim is.
He might, like, this is the best we can do. Like, we can't get like some Tuesday night college football. I think there is.
Well, it's just sad because it's ESPN. I expect this to be on like CBS Sports Network or FS.
Yeah, like this is ESPN
or at least the Deuce. Don't put it on ESPN 1.
Right, like this is legitimately on ESPN. So anyway, Jeff Fletcher will join us coming up at 5:30. If you're wondering about Jim, he's been out sick here today. We hope to get him back here at some point later in the week. He's been telling me he's been throwing up, which is kind of concerning. Like, are we cool to have him back here tomorrow?
Maybe he'll throw it all up.
Yeah, maybe. Potentially.
Get
Maybe
it
it's
out
one
of
of
his system.
24-hour like illnesses or something. Okay, so let's get to this.
What impressed you the most with San Diego State last night?
Jaden Ledee. I mean, he was a man among boys, and it's cliche, but it was true. He was so impressive and so imposing. And, you know, scored 27 points on 12 field goal attempts because he got to the free throw line 15 times. He was only 10 of 15 from the free throw line. You know, if he was 12 of 15 or better, he could have scored 30 points. But he went for 27 and 10. I think he played 34 minutes. Brian Dutcher spoke so highly of him post-game as well. I know it's only one game, Brent, but man, Jaden was impressive last night in the win.
You're going Jaden. I'm going to go Micah Parrish.
Yeah.
He
with
went
all those threes.
5 for 6 from downtown. And, you know, it was kind of, it's one of those things where we always talk about, oh, okay, who's going to be player of the game then for post game? And you're like, Jaden. It's like, well, didn't Micah have like 8
That's
threes?
a good point. He had 5.
Yeah, he was 5 or 6.
He was
just,
5
it
of
felt
6.
like he had a lot.
No, Micah was really good. And it's not solely based on how many points you score, because you can have a better game and score less points. But something about 27 and 10, double in the opener. That was a really good performance. But yeah, you're right. Micah was really good. Reese Waters in his debut, I thought was very good as well.
What did you think of the sleeves?
Was he wearing them?
Yes.
You know
Reese
me. I'm
Waters
so
and
terrible with
one other. But me and Fletch were talking about it during the game. He didn't have like a dry fit or like the compression sleeves.
They were just like a
it was
long
just
sleeve
like
shirt.
Yeah, it's just like a long sleeve shirt.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it. I really didn't.
Yeah, Waters and one other player had it.
Interesting. DeMarshe Johnson? No.
It was one of the bench guys. It wasn't a.
Was it Miles Heide, freshman?
I don't think so.
I'm terrible with that. All right, next question.
Do you think the Padres really have a mystery candidate?
I mean, that's a really good question. What's being reported is what we know, but is everything that's being reported the full extent of the search is really the question. And I can't answer it. I really can't. You know, I mean, where are you even looking on the outside here? I mean, there's nothing like smacking you in the face like, man, why don't they call Bruce Bochy? Well, this isn't 2 years ago. Or, you know, what about Buck Showalter? No, I mean, come on. Or Dusty Baker, well, he just retired. So is my guess that they hire either Schilt, Flaherty, or Gill, or even David Ross? Yeah, I would think you've got a 98% chance of being right among those 3 or 4. But I think there's always the possibility, Jim, or not Jim, Brent, wherever Jim is, that it could be someone else. What do you think?
I think they're just floating it out there to keep that carrot dangled in front of us to think that maybe there is somebody out there better than these 4 guys that have been, you know, named out in the public.
Right. Just like, yeah, put that out there. At some point, by the way, and Kevin Acey reported last week that this is expected to end this week. So like this whole charade is going to end maybe like in the next day or 2. For now, I'm leaning towards it's someone we've heard of so far as opposed to someone we haven't. That's where I'm leaning. Next question.
which team that's currently in the top 4 college football playoff rankings is most likely to miss the playoffs?
So they just released a new top 25. Correct me if I'm wrong, Brent. We have Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, Florida State.
Wrong. Ohio State's still number 1. So it's Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State, Washington, Oregon.
Okay.
The top 8 didn't change.
The top 8 did not change?
Did not change.
Okay. So among the top 4.
Top 4 is Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State.
The most likely of those 4 to miss the playoff is probably, and I don't know where the game is this year between Ohio State and Michigan, but I'm assuming the most likely is Ohio State. Michigan, to this point, has had the better year. I know they're both undefeated. Michigan has done it more impressively, but I don't know where that game is.
Ann Arbor.
It's in Ann Arbor, and in recent last couple of times, Michigan's been good in that game after Ohio State completely dominated it. So I guess I would say Ohio State. I mean, Georgia, even with the loss, would be in the top 4. Florida State, it could be a cakewalk through the ACC. And then Michigan and Ohio State have to face each other, although Michigan does have Penn State this weekend, too.
It's got to be Ohio State or Michigan, one of the two, because they have to play each other.
Because one of them is going to lose and potentially not. The loser of the game isn't playing in the Big Ten championship because they're in the same division. So, I will say Ohio State by a hair, with Michigan probably a slight favorite over Ohio State at the Big House. All right, let's get to our last question.
Will Aaron Rodgers play again this season?
So there have been a lot of different tentacles to this story, and it just continues because last night they were on Monday Night Football and they didn't show up, and they scored 6 points?
Yeah.
Last night. And again, they've got a bad situation at quarterback, obviously, without Aaron Rodgers. But the facts are the facts. And even though he's still out there throwing 50-yard passes on field on Monday night, the fact is 2 months ago, essentially today, he tore his Achilles. And athletes don't typically return from Achilles in less than 1/2 of a year. And I feel like that's even aggressive. It's been 2 months. So I find it unlikely, but why is there all this discussion about it?
Have you noticed that this only comes up when the Jets play primetime games?
Right.
When they play, the Commanders on Sunday afternoon, they're not showing Aaron Rodgers on the sideline throwing warm-up passes. But if it's Monday Night Football or Thursday night or a primetime game, of course, he's going to jump in front of the camera every chance he can get and go, "Hey, look at me. I'm throwing the football. Talk about me coming back." And
that's been a theme.
My Wolverine healing abilities. And
yeah, it's been a theme. Now, did you see this thing on social after the game last night? Derwin James and Aaron Rodgers. Derwin James asking Rodgers "Yo, when are you coming back?" And what went viral was Rodgers essentially saying in a few weeks.
Yeah, he made his weekly appearance on the sleeveless ones.
And what did he say?
Show.
Pat McAfee, he said, "Well, I'll be back in a few fortnights or something."
He said a couple fortnights.
What does that even mean?
A fortnight's 2 weeks, John.
So
it's about a month.
But Brent, you and I know this. It's one thing to do it if it was flag football. But A, the Jets offensive line isn't good. B, it's been 8 weeks since he had the surgery. There's only 8 or 9 weeks in the season. I just don't logistically see how you could get back to that level when nobody else is doing it, and he's 39 years old.
I just don't get why everyone's so impressed that, do you see he threw a 48-yard pass on the side?
He didn't injure his arm.
Exactly. He didn't injure his elbow.
That's a great point.
The dude always had a cannon. He could break his leg and probably still stand on one leg and chuck it 80 yards down the field. But his big thing is, okay, say he comes back. One of the things that made him so hard to deal with was, he wasn't Michael Vick or anything, but he did have scrambling ability to where when the pocket would collapse, he could take off and make things happen with his feet. He's not going to be able to do that with, 3/4 of Achilles or whatever he has left.
True.
He won't be 100% if he comes back. If he comes back, he's going to be 70 something. So in his mind, if he thinks that, 65% of me is good enough to get the Jets into the playoffs, then go for it, dude, I guess.
So the math is this: they're 4 and 4.
More ayahuasca.
Right. They're 4 and 4. So it's not the worst record, and there's still 9 games left, and you've got the expanded playoff. And listen to this, Brent. I mean, the schedule isn't exactly daunting. Here are among the opponents remaining: Raiders, Falcons, Texans, Commanders, Browns, Pats. That's 6 of your remaining 9 games. They have the Dolphins a couple times, and you have the Bills as well. But could you finagle 4 or 5 wins in there, get to 8, get to 9? Does Rodgers give you a better chance? And I don't know if he will give you. Of course, the perception is, of course, you got a better chance with Aaron Rodgers. But to your point, if he's not healthy and it's the NFL, is he really giving you a better chance?
Well, yeah, because if he's only 60% Rodgers, is 100% Zach Wilson at least okay, and just as good as 60% of Aaron Rodgers?
It's arguable. You see these scores. I mean, the game they beat the Giants was a rabbit out of a hat, low scoring. Last night they can't move the football, score 6 points.
All of their games, if they're, trust me, I know this as a Bears fan, they're going to have to win all their games
with
low
their
scoring.
Defense.
Yeah, they're going to have
13-10.
to. Yeah, exactly. They're going to have to stay in that 2 to 3 score range, and if it gets above that, they're screwed.
No doubt about it. All right, coming up at 5:30 again, Jeff Fletcher is going to join us about 15 minutes from now. Covers the Angels for the Orange County Register. We're going to talk about Benji Gill as a potential manager candidate in baseball. Is he getting looks right now in Anaheim or not? As the Padres have him as one of their candidates. Also, Shohei Ohtani is a free agent. Where could he be heading? Jeff Fletcher will join us coming up at 5:30. We started the show talking about all of the anticipation and excitement for San Diego State's return to the floor at Viejas Arena last night. What a night it was. For those that were there, I think it's a night you're going to remember for a long, long time. Not just winning. They win a lot. They win 90% of the time at home over the last 2 decades, essentially. I mean, they win as well as anyone, essentially, in the country, whether it's home or road. But they cleaned up at Viejas Arena. It was the circumstance. It was kind of that 25-year buildup from Steve Fisher arriving to all of the successes to waiting for a team to make a deep tournament run. And they had gotten close. There was 2011 with Kawhi Leonard. There was 2014 with Thames. There was 2020, 30-2, and we'll never know. And then there was last year. And, of course, heading into the year, the conversation was about, can San Diego State get over the hump and win one NCAA tournament game? And they ended up winning 5. And playing through Orlando and Louisville and all the way to Houston and Lamont Butler's epic shot, and then playing eventually for the national championship game against the University of Connecticut. So last night to me is like a culmination. It's a celebration. It doesn't guarantee anything for this year. There are no guarantees, we know, in sports. Last year's team will be celebrated for forever. But, Brent, as you and I know, I mean, we've covered San Diego State basketball for a long time. They consistently win at such a high level. I don't know if they were always recognized, nationwide. I think in the West, they've been recognized. They've always drawn well. Viejas Arena is an incredible environment. To do what they did last year kind of put them nationally forever on the map, in my opinion, or much more so on the map. And it's almost like they deserve that over the last 25 years. And they finally got it based on their performance last year.
Well, they got it. And now, where they go with it from here is, one of the important things of, it's when Butler went to the back-to-back national championships, if they would have just went to the national championship game, lost, and then just faded away, people would forget that Butler even did that. So it's important for the Aztecs now coming off the runner-up game, or coming up being runner-up, that shut up, Siri. After being runner-up, that they just keep moving forward and just keep showing that, hey, making the championship game last year wasn't a fluke. We're a legit contender. It's like Dutch said, what was it, during media days, that, we should be considered right up there with Gonzaga. Nobody considers Gonzaga to be a mid-major, but for some reason, when it comes to SDSU, we're considered to be lower than Gonzaga, and, just they don't consider Gonzaga a mid-major. So I think it's just important for where we go from here.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I mean, I think if you look at regular season winning, San Diego State has won at such a high level, it's very easy to compare them to Gonzaga. Now, Gonzaga made an earlier run than San Diego State. You know what I mean? Like, Gonzaga's Final Four run has happened. They've made multiple Final Fours. They've played in a national championship game, right? Yeah, they've played a national championship game.
Yes.
They absolutely have. So, yeah, Gonzaga kind of did it before San Diego State did it. Therefore, Gonzaga took up that focus potentially outside of the quote-unquote power programs. But it's a really good point. I mean, what Gonzaga has done in the WCC is very comparable to what San Diego State has done in the Mountain West. And to your point, I mean, how do you benefit? How do you parlay last year into future seasons? And Dutcher said this a lot as well. And I always like when he says it. It's like this idea that, like, hey, now that you've won, are you going to get really good recruits? It's like, well, we already have had really good players and they fit in our system. So it's not about that. It's continuing to give yourself chances to get to the NCAA tournament. And when you get there, hopefully you make a run. And they were able to do it last year.
And it put us on the map nationally, just the same way with, nobody knew who Wichita State was until they made that tournament run. And now every year when you see Wichita State in the tournament bracket, you're like, oh, hey, I remember them. So now, when you see San Diego State in the bracket, like, oh yeah, I remember them.
Right.
That's the group of guys that, Barkley said, oh, that's a group of men among boys with the rest of the tournament. And they're going to remember them opposed to just being San Diego State. Oh yeah, Marshall Falk went there.
Right.
Or to be like, we were going to be known as a basketball school now, opposed to before where we might have only been known for mostly football.
Well, and again, I mean, the last,
Kawhi.
the last 25 years obviously speak for themselves, right? Steve Fisher gets here and Brian Dutcher gets here as an assistant to Coach Fisher, and everything has just changed. I mean, anyone that has been in the city long enough to, know what it was like before and what it's like after. I mean, it's night and day. And San Diego State isn't just a good basketball program. San Diego State's become an elite basketball program. Now, what does that guarantee you? I can tell you about Blue Bloods, and it's not like North Carolina was guaranteed a spot in the Final Four every year. They didn't even make the NCAA tournament last year. As winning of a program as there is in the nation, Kentucky's missed out at some point recently in the last couple of years, right? So nothing is guaranteed in this sport. Even the Blue Bloods and the elites, they might have more opportunities, more resources. And of course, it's not easy to replicate. It's not going to be easy for UConn to replicate their season and get back to a Final Four. And it's not going to be easy for San Diego State either. But you never know. And that's the beauty of sports. And last night was, it's a celebration of what happened last year, but it's also a look ahead. Like, hey, why not us again? With what's been built here, there are changes. The schedule's hard. But guess what I was saying last year? Schedule's hard. And people were saying, oh, they got to win the big one. So now this year you're saying, well, they've won the big one. They've turned over their roster a bit. They still have a tough schedule. And, what's the encore look like for the Aztecs?
But I think the tough schedule is the reason why they win those big games and they win these tough games is because, they're not out playing James Madison in the non-conference. They're out there playing teams that are going to test them and playing teams that are going to get them better and prepare them for March and in the tournament. And, Dutch has been very vocal about, we'll play anybody. It's just a matter of, will anybody actually play us?
Yeah, which actually is a great segue. We played it earlier. We don't need to play it here, but Mark Pope is the head coach of BYU. The Aztecs get BYU Friday in Provo. It's been a really good, entertaining series over the years. The Aztecs have always struggled there. I mean, it's elevation. BYU's had good basketball teams over the years. San Diego State.
Get your beet juice ready.
Yeah, exactly. They beet juice for elevation. And we know. I mean, BYU San Diego State has been a good series in both football and basketball.
I feel like Gatorade should make like a special beet juice flavor just for altitude games.
They really they really should. It should be like presented by San Diego State since they play at altitude. But like now it really gets going. And now the challenge begins. I remember a year ago talking about the quote unquote disappointment of Maui, right? They beat Ohio State, but they lost to Arizona and Arkansas. And it was this whole idea, well, here we go again. Right. They're not going to be the team we hope them to be. Right. We hope them to be a second weekend NCAA tournament team and a top 20 caliber team. The truth is you don't know what you're going to get based on what happens in November. It's a one and done tournament. You got to get to the tournament. You got to earn it. You got to put together a resume and you need to win games. Make no mistake. But what happens Friday night in BYU has little effect, not no effect, but has little effect on whether San Diego State makes a run or not this March. And like I said, you need to build a resume. You need to win games. But man, there was a lot of, outcry and disappointment based on what happened in Maui. And the truth is, what Maui did was give the team a bit of an adversity situation that they used to their advantage throughout the course of the year. They learned from Maui. Isn't that kind of the point of sports, specifically college sports? Like, you're not going perfect. Nobody's done it since 1976, the Indiana Hoosiers. So assuming you're not going perfect, the question is, what can you learn from the adversity and or the losses that you can take with you? We go back to Maui with Lamont. It's a well-told tale at this point, that he didn't have success late against Arkansas, and then he learned from it, had huge moments late in the season, New Mexico for a regular season championship at the buzzer, and then, of course, FAU. Everyone knows what happened in the Final Four. So, again, I can't guarantee you that they win in BYU. I don't know what's going to happen against Gonzaga or St. Mary's. I do know this. Whatever happens, they'll be better off for it, and they're going to put themselves in a position to be in position, because that's what they've done under Brian Dutcher and Steve Fisher. So, again, Friday night, Provo, Utah, San Diego State, BYU, right here on San Diego Sports 760. We've got football for you this weekend as well, San Diego State and Colorado State. All right, we're going to take a timeout because on the other side, Jeff Fletcher will join us. He's done a really good job over the years covering the Angels for the OC Register, which means he has covered the career of Benji Gill as a coach. What does he make of Benji Gill as a potential managerial candidate, whether it's in Anaheim, San Diego, or elsewhere? Plus, Shohei Ohtani is now a free agent. What can we glean from Jeff Fletcher regarding Shohei Ohtani's future? So we'll catch up with Jeff Fletcher on the other side. We have Brent's back page still to come as well. Jim is off. He's sick, hopefully back at some point later in the week. Stay with us. Again, Jeff Fletcher, OC Register, joins us next.
Here's what's trending from my Heart Sports Network, presented by the Jim Petrell Real Estate Team. San Diego State started their 2023 season off with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton last night. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 rebounds. The team is on the road this Friday against BYU. Pregame starts at 5:30, tip shortly after 6. Ohio State remained number 1 in the latest college football playoff rankings. The top 8 teams remained unchanged from a week ago. And Kansas coach Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. Self signed an amended 5-year contract today and will make $53 million over the next 5 years. And don't forget to catch San Diego State football this Saturday at Colorado State. Pregame starts at 2 p.m. with kicks slightly after 4. Here's what's trending from my Heart Sports Network, presented by the Jim Petrell Real Estate Team. San Diego State started their 2023 season off with an 83-57 win over Cal State Fullerton last night. Jaden Ledee led the way with 27 points and 10 rebounds. The team is on the road this Friday against BYU. Pregame starts at 5:30, tip shortly after 6. Ohio State remained number 1 in the latest college football playoff rankings. The top 8 teams remained unchanged from a week ago. And Kansas coach Bill Self is now the highest paid coach in college basketball. Self signed an amended 5-year contract today and will make $53 million over the next 5 years. And don't forget to catch San Diego State football this Saturday at Colorado State. Pregame starts at 2 p.m. with kicks slightly after 4.
Would you like to know what your home would sell for today? Get a simple text message with your home's value by texting your address to 855-600-6000. You'll get no phone call, just a text. Jim Buttrell has the buyers. Simply text your address to 855-600-6000.
All right, so multiple managerial searches being conducted right now throughout Southern California. You have the Padres, of course. We've discussed it with regularity the last few weeks since the Bob Melvin news. Of course, the Angels have a situation going on as well in regards to their managerial vacancy. We have Jeff Fletcher with us right now. He covers the Angels beat for the Orange County Register. And I believe, Jeff, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe you are at the GM meetings, right, going on right now in Arizona?
Yes, I am.
So what are you gleaning here? There's a lot to get into, and I think Padres fans are at least curious about the idea of Benji Gill. But let's start with the Angels, since that's the beat you cover. What type of candidate do the Angels seem to prefer, and does Gill fit into that equation? Because he is a candidate right now, right?
Well, they've been very vague about what they want. They do say they want a guy with a lot of kind of presence and somebody who's really respected. And as Perry Manazian said today, it's the kind of guy he walks in the room and everybody knows he's there. But that doesn't necessarily mean an established big league manager. So he was very clear that doesn't only mean like a Buck Showalter type. So Benji Gill could be that guy. I don't know that what we have seen from him in the media really establishes one way or the other if he is that kind of guy. I mean, I think the people that worked more closely with him would know that. But, you know, they all certainly liked him from my understanding, and they thought he was a good coach. And obviously, you know, Mexico WBC guys liked him, and that team did well. So I really don't know exactly who they're going to hire, but hopefully they do something soon.
Well, the situation, same thing playing out here in San Diego. Now, San Diego, you've got some internal candidates, Mike Schilt and Ryan Flaherty, but the name that's being discussed, and I think has gained a lot of traction among the fan base, is Benji Gill. But what is it about his skill set that may be appealing to whether it's the Angels or the Padres? Is it that managerial experience in the WBC, which is a short period of time, or is it his previous managerial experience in the Mexican League?
Well, I think that those two things are not really enough. Just games managing to really have that be the strongest part of his case. I think it's more like the kind of guy he is and just the way he interacts with people. I think that would be the biggest strength that he would have. I mean, I don't think that you can really judge how a guy manages in the Mexican League or it's 6 games in the WBC to say this guy's a great manager. But if you can know from being around him if he's a good leader, works with people, all that kind of thing.
Do you think he's destined to become a major league manager? I mean, he's getting these interviews, obviously. I mean, he's on coaching staffs. He's managed previously, like we said, not in the big leagues. I mean, is this ultimately his destiny, whether it happens this offseason or not?
I mean, I never want to say that because there's a lot of guys who really should have gotten chances to manage. There's not very many jobs. I've worked around lots of guys who seem really smart, seem really capable of being big league managers and never got the opportunity. So I don't know if he's going to get the chance or not.
So, okay, so you've obviously covered the Angels for a long while. You've written about Shohei Ohtani. He's obviously now a free agent. Regarding his free agency, where do the Angels factor into this?
Well, I kind of feel like they're number 2 right now on the list, which nobody else seems to buy because I think everybody else just assumes that they have no chance. But I think that he's very comfortable with the Angels, and I think that counts for something. I think there's really 2 big pieces to his decision, and it's going to be how much can the team win and how comfortable will he be? And the winning is the problem with the Angels. They obviously haven't won, but the comfort, you know, the Angels have pretty much shaped their whole roster around him. They let him do whatever he wants, including, you know, his media responsibilities. It's all, or lack thereof, I should say. It's all basically to make him happy and comfortable. So that's not something that you take for granted. So I think that that's a reason that they still do have a chance. But the number 1 team I would say is probably the Dodgers, because the Dodgers do win. They win every year. They win more than anybody, and you know they certainly could provide that comfort also.
What has changed regarding his future contract based on the injuries that he has sustained, specifically, you know, what shut him down here in 2023?
Yeah, I mean, I think that people were getting pretty crazy with what they thought he could earn before, and talking like 600 or 700 million. I don't see that happening anymore, just because of the questions about his pitching. But he still, just as a hitter and as a potential pitcher, and as a guy who's going to sell a lot of tickets and a lot of jerseys and all that, he still should get the largest contract ever, I think. So that would be $426 million. This is what Mike Trout got. I think he should probably break that. So I feel like probably if I were betting, I would put him in the 450 to 500 range for sure, and maybe a little higher than that. But I don't think we're talking like 600 or any of the kind of numbers that we were talking about before he got hurt.
And how big of a question is it? Jeff Fletcher's with us. He covers the Angels for the OC Register. I mean, is it a huge question what his long-term future looks like when it comes to, you know, pitching in the big leagues? And he's had so much success, but he's also had injuries. So how big of a question mark is it? You know, is he going to be consistently on the mound in the second half of his career?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know. I mean, I think the track record is pretty limited for guys who've had 2 Tommy John surgeries. There's certainly some success stories. You know, Nate Eovaldi was the hero of the World Series. He had 2 Tommy John surgeries. There's a handful of other guys that have come through, but there's really not like, you can't point to like 100 guys who've done it and say like 60 of them came back. So it's just still, you're talking about a small number. So I think that given his history and his work ethic and talent, I think he will come back and be a good pitcher again, but I don't know if he's going to be quite as good or if he's going to pitch for as many years or any of that kind of stuff. And, maybe he's not going to be as good right away. Maybe he will be this good again, but it won't be till 2026 instead of 2025. So these are all just unknowns, which I think that teams are going to have to take into account when they're deciding what they're going to do with him.
Jeff, Padres fans are saying that this search is playing out over a long period of time, right? Like it's been a couple of weeks. The season's been over now for San Diego for over a month. Same situation obviously with the Angels in terms of when the season came to an end. Has this been a long process with the Angels, or what's the timetable here for it to be resolved?
Who knows? Hopefully it's sooner than later.
Mm-hmm.
It could be sometime this week, but hopefully it will be as soon as possible, but we don't really know.
What are the priorities beyond manager and Ohtani for the Angels this offseason?
Well, they need some pitching. They probably need, especially relief pitching. I'd say that's where they have some more holes, maybe one starter. And they probably need a decent, productive position player who could play multiple positions, because they don't really have a sure hole that, like, they have somebody who looks like they could be capable at every position,
Mm-hmm.
but there's some questions about a bunch of those guys, but you just don't know which guy is going to be hurt or underperform. So the more players you have who can fill multiple holes, that would be the best thing. Like last year, they got Brandon Drury,
Right?
who you guys
Yep.
knew from San Diego, who was a perfect fit for them because he could play first, second, or third. So wherever the leak sprung, they could fill it with him. They also had Gio Urshela, who was a similar case. So now Gio Urshela is gone, so they probably need to replace him with some other type versatile offensive player, maybe Justin Turner. Maybe if you want to look a little higher up on the food chain, you go Cody Bellinger, who could play outfield or first base, something like that. I think that's kind of what I would think they would be looking at.
And then finally, I mean, how do you handicap the managerial vacancy with the Angels? Is there a candidate or two that is more likely than the others, or how do you see this potentially playing out?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I haven't even really. You hear a lot of things, but
Right.
I think that the leaks that are coming out are not necessarily from the people that actually know what's going on. So I think it's a lot of secondhand rumors or third-hand speculation. So I don't really want to commit to too much of that guessing. I don't think it's necessarily going to be an experienced guy like Buck Showalter or a new guy like Benji Gill. I think it could be anything at this point.
Interesting off seasons underway in Anaheim, also in San Diego. We'll see if Benji Gill has his name called by either the Angels or the Padres this offseason. Of course, Shohei Ohtani is really the story of the offseason across Major League Baseball. Jeff, we appreciate your insight and taking some time for us during the GM meeting. So thanks for doing it in San Diego.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right. Jeff Fletcher, again, Orange County Register, has written about Shohei Ohtani and is covering the Angels right now for the OC Register. On the other side, Jim isn't here. He's sick. The good news is Brent is here. And you could argue Brent's back page is as good, if not better, than Jim's back page. So that's coming up on the other side. You decide for yourself. Stay with us on Jon and Jim. All right, we've got an update from Kevin AC at the GM meetings in Scottsdale, plus Brent's back page next. All right. So speaking of the GM meetings in Scottsdale, Kevin Acee just posting an article to the UT that is headlined this. We'll get to Brent's back page in 1 minute. Padres have lots to do this offseason, period. Signing Shohei Ohtani is probably not one of those things. There's the headline. Now, he doesn't.
Yeah, that's accurate.
Yeah, he doesn't say it's impossible, right? You always have to have a qualifier. It's not to say it's impossible. And he writes that, like, there was a period of time, like a year ago, where it's like, can you extend Juan Soto and sign Shohei Ohtani? And now it's like, can you do one of those two things? And the answer is unlikely, probably on both. Signing Soto and or signing Ohtani.
Can Ohtani play shortstop?
Yeah, probably not. Probably not. So again, there's a lot to go through. Obviously, for the Padres, they got to settle on a manager. They got to determine Juan Soto's future. They need to determine what to do with this rotation. With now Snell likely out, Martinez, Waka, Lugo, right? But this idea of Shohei Ohtani in free agency, maybe it's been a pipe dream for a while. It's basically a pipe dream, is the way I'd look at it. Is it impossible? No. But considering all the factors at play, the Padres' financial commitments, the fact that they went 82-80 and missed out on the postseason, it just feels like a leap. It really does. And that's basically what Kevin Acee has written today from Scottsdale. All right, Jim is off today. He's out sick. So let's get to this.
Now, I don't know what it is with bear stories whenever I do the back page. I remember last time I did the back page, I had that story about that bear stealing the White Claws out of that family's fridge.
I do remember that,
backyard.
Yes. Yeah.
Well, once again, in Florida, of course, a bear took $45 worth of Taco Bell that someone had DoorDash to their house.
$45?
A doorbell camera caught surprising moment in Florida when a bear ate $45 worth of Uber Eats order. A lady told Fox 35 in Florida that they just were waiting for their Taco Bell dinner to arrive when this bear showed up, and it came, it ate their food, it left, and then it turned around and came back for their sodas.
No.
Drank their sodas, and then it left.
Dude, bears drink sodas?
And White Claws, apparently. Go figure.
Dude, $45 at Taco Bell is like a real order, isn't it?
It used to be.
Not
Not
as
so
much
much anymore.
anymore.
Yeah, with inflations, it can be done.
And where was that, by the way? Florida.
In Florida.
There's bears in Florida?
Yeah.
Okay.
Florida's crazy. There's a bunch of stuff in
Interesting.
Florida.
Yeah. All right. What else do you have?
Have you heard about the Disney bathroom story?
Maybe just on the periphery. I haven't dug deep.
I guess there is an urban legend that when people were waiting and would be waiting in long lines for rides, that they were going number 2 in the line instead of getting out to go to the bathroom. Well, that's been confirmed according to KTLA 5. Allegedly, Disney guests are pooping while waiting in line for rides. They said that I guess some guys that used to be custodians for Disney wrote a book, and that was one of their chapters that they put in it. And now it's been confirmed. And other Disney patrons have been telling their stories about how one lady said they were waiting in line for Galaxy Edge, and some other family just had their kid drop their pants and drop a deuce right there in line. And then they just moved on the line like nothing even happened.
Well, how long are these lines that someone would be willing to do that? And couldn't someone just serve as a placeholder like the person that
I
you're
would
with?
think so. But yeah, the lines are long. It's amusement park.
So
that's part of the deal.
Hours maybe at times, hours.
But yeah, there's a placeholder. And it even said in the article that they do have bathrooms that far in there. They're mostly supposed to be for employees, but they said if it's between, you crapping on the floor or using the bathroom, they'll let you use the bathrooms. Just
right.
ask.
That's pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Actually, very.
I'm not really jumping on the train here to head
get
off to Disney now.
Okay.
After that. And then finally, we'll finish up with a weird food story because it wouldn't be the back page without it. Remember when Jim said that he did the Thanksgiving pizza the other day?
Yes.
Where it had all the turkey and everything on the pizza.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not to be outdone, Baskin Robbins is coming up with a new flavor of ice cream called Turkey Day Fixins. And the untraditional ice cream will feature sensations of sweet potato, spice, cornbread pieces, and swirls of cranberry sauce.
Do you think that sounds better or worse than the pizza?
Worse.
Way worse. I completely agree. That is way worse.
At least the pizza had like turkey and stuff in it. I don't really.
Well, you don't want turkey in your ice cream.
Well, I don't want cranberry sauce and what they say, cornbread or. Yeah, I don't want cornbread pieces and sweet potatoes in my ice cream either.
Is this done as a marketing ploy or because people would actually eat it? Because pumpkin spice, yeah, okay, I could eat pumpkin spice Cheerios and different items, but do people really want turkey dinner across all different food palettes?
Some people think that it's just because the other day Heinz is coming up with pickle flavored ketchup, so they're trying to one up Heinz with their weird ketchup flavor thing. But as gross as this sounds, according to the article, this isn't even the worst misfire in Baskin Robbins ice cream flavor history. Among them were they tried ketchup ice cream once, and as well as gummy gumdrops ice cream. And the last one contained hard candy that was so hard that their teeth were like breaking off.
That is terrible.
So,
yeah. So this isn't the worst.
No,
it could always be worse.
worse.
Yeah. I like Thanksgiving. I do, but I don't know if I need to get overly creative with more Thanksgiving ideas. It's already good.
Yeah. Turkey's fine the way it is. I don't need to put it on a pizza or in ice cream.
I agree completely.
Maybe do gravy ice cream.
I
wouldn't eat that either, but it would make more sense. Than the other ones, yeah.
It would. Good job on the back page without Jim. Now, will Jim be back tomorrow? Good question. Hopefully. He says he threw up a couple times today, so I think he's actually feeling better from that. So good job here today. We didn't have Jim. Hopefully we do tomorrow. It is a busy week. Maybe we get a Padres manager this week. We've got Aztecs basketball for you Friday from Provo. We've got football from Fort Collins on Saturday. We've got you covered right here on San Diego Sports 760. Now, as always, as we remind you, if you missed anything today, actually, is the music playing or not? Okay, it's not. I apologize. I'm bad with the music. There it is. Tomorrow, Brady Hook Show. by the way, at 6 p.m. But if you missed anything today, like our conversations with Jeff Fletcher or Paul Garrison, check it out, sportssd.com, iHeartRadio app, iTunes, TuneIn Radio, Spotify, or find us on YouTube. Search for Jon and Jim 760. We're also, of course, on social media. You can find us by searching for Jon and Jim, JONANDJIM. That is JONANDJIM. We're back tomorrow at 3. Hopefully by then, Jim is feeling better. And for Brent, I'm Jon. Keep it here. It's San Diego Sports 760.
Okay.
Okay.